Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting. Today is September 24th. I'd ask everybody to please rise and pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we're going to bounce around tonight because we have a lot of visitors. So first, I think the thing we'll tackle is, want the police department come on up and let's get you guys out of the way.
Actually, we want to get rid of you. We don't want
Get
Welcome.
that feeling, you know.
You know, you might have
All right.
found this out, but we're not sensitive.
So we have some surplus property, I understand.
Yeah, again, as usual, I always have something that comes up a little bit more. I just want to hand out a brochure to you, to the board tonight.
He
For
never misses an opportunity to get in front of the camera. this
For your
guy.
perusal. And what this is a crime prevention program put together by one of our college interns and Officer Dennis Sullivan, the college intern being William Queen. And this is for businesses and residents, and we're going to have a class at the police department. This brochure will go out to all our residents and basically gives you tips on businesses and residentials on crime prevention, ways to avoid being a victim. So I'll pass it out. And that was done, by the way, at absolutely no cost. Brad Legier stepped in and printed them at no cost to us, so that was excellent. One other thing before we start with the program, I'd like to introduce this young gentleman behind me. His name is Joseph Gamache. He's an intern with Northern Essex College. He's a senior in the criminal justice program. He is one of a long line of interns. And tonight, the most important thing we bring him to the Board of Selectmen is to see our town government, but to also let them know that the police in every community report to a civil authority. And that's what makes American police officers so different than many other countries in the world. That we report to the civilians. We don't run the show. Like you see these TV shows, you think they don't have to report to anyone, but that's the lesson for this evening. And he'll be with us for a while, and he graduates this semester. So.
Well, welcome. Maybe we'll see you on a cruiser someday. Hopefully. Okay.
in the front seat.
Yeah, in the front. With your hands free.
Oh yeah. And on the agenda item tonight, again, I want accolades to Lieutenant Cudmore. You know, as you know, in any business, government or in private sector, you have property. Sometimes it's new property, sometimes it's old property, sometimes it's used property. So in being proactive and trying to move forward and utilize the used property and see what we can do with it to get the best use out of it, Lieutenant Cudmore started looking into it, and he came up with property.com. I think when you hear this program, you may say to the other department heads in town, you know, this is really a good idea, and maybe you want to follow the same procedure because, like I said, and I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Cudmore. He runs the whole program.
I'll just pass these out again, pass those along, Chief. Good evening. What I'm passing out is the policy that was adopted by the town, by your board, obviously, and was passed along to us through the town administrator's office back in 2010. So the first time that I actually filed a surplus property form pursuant to this policy was December of 2010. And then thereafter, we began exploring how to deal with Section H, where there's actual auction activity concerning property. At the police department, we have, three types of property. We have town property, which is police department-owned property, and then there's evidence and property, such as lost and found items or evidence that's been abandoned. So we have to come up with a mechanism to get rid of that property pursuant to this policy as well as our own. So what we did during the accreditation process is reach out to a company called propertyroom.com. Excuse me, and propertyroom.com has approximately 100 police departments here in Massachusetts. And what they do is they satisfy the auction procedure by which they post the advertisements. You send them your policy, which I did. The chief signs an agreement with them concerning the property. And then the auction process is done according to this particular policy here, our disposal policy, being items that are greater than 5,000, which we've never had. So we have not approached that in this policy yet. But some of the items that we were able to finally clean up in the police department after many years were items that really were under the value of $50, but they were disposed of properly. They were auctioned, and then those proceeds were given back to the police department, and those checks are forwarded to the town treasurer's office for deposit back into the general fund. It's a great program because, number one, the advertisement cost concerning auctions is exorbitant. Mr. Farrell had told us that several years ago, and we said, you know, if we have to put an advertisement in the paper concerning auctions, as well as hiring the auction house, or, you know, I know the town administrator probably doesn't want to auction off the police department property individually, so it's been a good fit. And we have documented manifests as well as invoices that come in online. They're forwarded to the treasurer's office so that everything reconciles. And the value of the property is commensurate to a live auction. And then anything, and the most important part, I think, of the policy is that if you read the sections of your policy, it says that if there is property that's deemed of no value and needs to be destroyed, propertyroom.com does that for free. So, I mean, they come out, they pick up, they've done probably half a dozen pickups at the police department. And as opposed to us traditionally giving away the car parts and so forth that come off old cruisers that are decommissioned, we're actually auctioning them off, and, you know, we get $50, $75 for those parts. So it's all coming back as at least, you know, a dollar value on that particular piece of property as opposed to throwing it away.
Good.
So I believe the one you have before you tonight is a vehicle. Vehicles are handled a little differently because in the policy it says we're to reach out to our other departments to see if that vehicle is a viable use to them. We tried that back in April with the old Explorer. The water department actually took possession of the Explorer, and after looking at it and delving into its repairs, gave it back to me. So I did have to auction that vehicle off, and we didn't get much money for that vehicle, obviously. This particular vehicle here is inoperable. It has a blown rear end and a couple of other issues that clearly nobody wants that vehicle. It's reached its useful life. It's, I believe, got 131,000 miles on it. And we've done everything that we can as far as using that vehicle. We scrap the parts off the vehicle. It's brought back to the condition of a regular passenger car vehicle, and then that will be auctioned off at some point. And that's
pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it.
What do they take for a fee, do you know?
On property that's under $1,000, it's 50%, and then property over $1,000, we get 75%. And on vehicles, we get 87.5% of the value. So the fee for a vehicle is 12.5, 25% on something that's over 1,000, and 50% for something that's under 1,000. For instance, we had a police bike with a cracked frame. It was deemed surplus. It was not fixable. We got $123 for the bike on auction, and we ended up with $70 that was given back to the town. So, I mean, as opposed to just scrapping that unit at a salvage yard, at least we got some money back for it. And it's all done with SKU numbers so that the correlated sheets match the driver who picks it up, who logs it into the manifest. They they email the manifest to us. We reconcile our accounts so that we know that our property is being handled appropriately.
And the nice thing is this can be done with any piece of equipment in any department in town. That includes old furniture, you name it, anything can be moved like this.
Have you mentioned this to other departments, or is it just police department that's...
Well, what we did was, I mean, first of all, we wanted to see how the system worked. And I think that we've got a pretty good feel for how it's working now. And I was going to work with the town administrator's office and possibly put it on on some type of agenda. I mean, we're working in the fall for a townwide fleet maintenance program. Looking at another scheduling program that could possibly be townwide, another grant situation. And I serve for this board on the CIP, so basically waiting for that season to come and possibly, you know, explore that to see if we can actually, you know, do something like this on a townwide basis.
Yeah, right around budget season, it might be good to let people know about it.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
You just have to manage it. I mean, it's, you know, it's a task I take on. So you would have to find someone within each department who wants to do that. It's a bit tedious, but I enjoy it, you know, to see a return on something that's just been sitting in the attic for 4
Luckily,
years.
he enjoys.
Well, you know, it's part of my job.
American Pickers.
But I'm a taxpayer too, so that's important.
That's right, exactly.
So there's money coming back, you know.
No, great job. I mean, that's rather than just throw things in the dumpster. You know, so we got even if we get a little bit return, something's
it.
better than nothing.
Yes,
That's
it is.
great.
It's a great program and it's working well, and tip of the hat to Lieutenant Cudmore again for his hard efforts there.
Great job. So we have to go ahead and vote to accept this surplus property.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the declaration of surplus personal property, submitted by the police department for the 2007 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor.
I'm gonna drop the personal property, surplus property, sir.
Okay.
All right? There's no personal property.
It's
there.
not mine.
I'm just reading, I'm sorry.
That's your form.
It's my fault.
Second. There you go. So we have a motion and a second. Any
I'm a robot.
discussion, any questions for our esteemed guests? No? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. the ayes
Thank you
have
very
it.
much.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
sir.
Great
Thank you.
job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I promised we're gonna be bouncing around tonight, so we're gonna bounce around. We have the, good luck, thank you.
Welcome.
So we're gonna bounce around a little bit. I'd ask the schools to come on up. I see there's a representative from the school committee and our superintendent are here tonight. So come on up.
Here's the next contestant.
So we're here to talk about, or you're here to talk about warrant articles. Okay, so,
We are.
All right. Just by way of background, the warrant article that we're here to talk about specifically is one for special education funding. I'm gonna give you like a little history so that people can kind of understand the context of where this is coming from. Each year when we build our budget, specifically for special education, we look at the programs we have in place in-house, the costs associated with those, the students that we're educating through those programs, so we make sure that the staffing levels are appropriate for their needs as well as our staffing guidelines. The next thing that we look at is the students that live in Georgetown that are placed out of district and the costs associated with those. So Carol and her administrative team literally walk through the roster and say who's where, what's the cost, and from a tuition and from a transportation perspective. So we come up with that and then identify anything that we might know, either someone leaving, someone coming in, anything that bubbles up. So we start this process in December. So about last December we started this. And then we came forward with our budget last May, April, May-ish, and that was approved, the way that it was approved. At this time, we've identified several issues that have come up that we had no knowledge, I don't want to say we had no knowledge of, but they weren't issues at the time when we prepared our budget. So what we are looking at, just in terms of when we look at the special education budget as part of our district budget is $12.6 million. Special ed represents about 22 to 25% typically. This year it's 23.2%. And that's comprised of out-of-district tuitions, special education transportation, and our in-district program expense. And that's net of circuit breaker. So that's net of money we receive back from the state to offset out-of-district tuition only. At this time,
It's a reimbursement, though.
It-
So you, if the year you incur the money, the
That's the
expense,
next
you
year.
have to pay for it in that year, whether you've budgeted for it or not.
Right.
And then
You
the
get
following
reimbursed
year,
the
you
following
get
year.
reimbursed
Up to what,
72% of $39,000.
after 39, the delta between the tuition and 39,000.
Right,
right, got it,
39 is the maximum.
No matter what, we pay 39,
right.
unless
And then-
the cost is less than that.
So you get almost 3/4 of anything over that.
Mm-hmm.
70%, so, okay,
And that's new this year. It was 38% last year.
okay.
So the
So-
state's trying
So we're
to,
we're looking at 38% to 72%. So next year, depending upon how the budget goes, they could bring it back down to whatever number they need to balance the budget. We're not guaranteed that number.
right.
All right.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you, I sort of follow you, I learned a
Yeah.
lot of numbers there. Can you just repeat that?
So, right now,
Yeah,
if you have a special education tuition only,
yep,
say, I'll just give you like a numeric example so you can follow it.
sure.
Say your tuition is $100,000, just for ease of numbers. We're obligated to pay $39,000. That's the state threshold, no matter what.
Right,
So then you have $61,000. The state will reimburse us 72% of that $61,000 the following year.
Is that circuit breaker? Is that what that
That's
is?
circuit
right.
breaker.
Okay,
That's
is the
correct.
reimbursement.
That's the reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Carol mentioned 38%. That 72% was 38%. So
They
it's
doubled it.
Correct.
So we should see a little bit more reimbursement. in
It's never
14.
gone above 72 or 3.
75 is the highest I've
Okay.
seen it.
Right,
But
but we'll
it-
get a little more cash than we anticipated in next year's budget, because we probably budgeted reimbursements at 32. Oh, we haven't.
We
even got-
budgeted at 72
Oh,
because
did
we
Okay, because you knew about it?
we knew
Okay.
about
enough in
that when
advance,
we did
yeah.
our budget.
Okay, good.
So that's, and now you have the tuition part, but then we also have to transport children.
And
We
you-
don't get any reimbursement on that. That's 100% our cost. At this time, we've identified several issues that have come up through the system and through our processes that we have in place that are gonna require additional funding above what we have budgeted. Above the, let's see, what do we have? Almost 3 million budgeted. We're looking at another $250,000
Okay.
to cover those costs, and that's what we're looking for in the warrant article.
And those are potential additions to the program that were unanticipated, pretty much.
Correct. They're extraordinary
Extraordinary.
things that we didn't know about
Right.
between December and May when we were putting our budget together.
And going forward, that one would assume that those would still be there. However, there could be people that, or students that fall out of the program. That
Exactly.
could offset some of that 250 going forward. So
That's correct.
So it's not totally a structural issue, but it could be a structural issue going forward.
That,
To boost up, you're gonna have to boost up special ed.
It is a structural issue
it's,
going forward.
it's structural.
Okay.
But you're right, sometimes students
You
do
get some
move in the middle of
offsets
the year.
and-
Right.
Can you help the public understand, what's the average, is there any, is that even a good question? And maybe it's a different question I want to ask, but to transport a student, what do we pay? I mean, I know that it goes from, we have to go as
Depends
far
where
as
they
X
go.
and Y, but the reason I'm asking is, at any point, does it make sense to have our own transportation, owning our own vehicles to actually transport these? Because if we're looking at another $250,000, I see a salary in a van, that could probably, so you know where I'm going with this
We
conversation.
tried this a couple, I don't know if
Yeah.
you,
I
who was
do
around
remember,
then.
and I'm looking to bring that conversation back
Yeah,
up.
we, it's a couple of things that you have to consider.
Yeah.
One, the location of where you're driving, and then the concentration of the number of students
Right.
that go there. And then there's also the option of partnering with area towns. For example, if we had vans and we had a number of children that were going, I can't even think.
Beverly.
To Beverly, then we could say, we have a 6-person van, we need 3 spots on it, we'll open 3 spots up to area, other area children.
Right
That would be
now,
on
right
one.
now, many of our children go on North Reading Transportation, which is also the company we use for our regular day transportation.
Sure.
So that's how we try to control costs, is North Reading actually serves as that broker. So they'll put students from different districts on the same bus, and then we pay a price for the seat.
Without naming names, issues, or anything, what's the most that we pay for an individual to go to a required school or education program? For one individual?
Tuition and transportation?
Just transportation.
Phil, I'm not sure this year. In the past, we had a couple of children who went to Walpole, and we paid for them to go to Walpole back and forth every day.
I can tell from personal experience in the past, I believe when my daughter was special needs, and
Yeah.
transportation was more than the schooling. Because there's other things that come in, I mean, you can, as a parent, we could also require an aid
Yeah,
because of special
yeah.
needs, you can even
We have a nurse that rides one of our buses.
That was, I was gonna say next, you could, we could have pushed for a nurse. And what happened was, we started transporting her. And I don't know if you reach out to any parents to do that, but I mean, that was a great savings to the town, and I mean, and we felt like she was getting a proper transportation, so I don't know
We
if
do,
you-
and there are some
yeah.
parents who receive reimbursement
Yeah,
for the cost of handling the
I
transportation for
mean,
their
not
child.
everybody can do it, but
Right.
we were
No.
capable.
Are we approaching, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind,
Yeah, go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead.
Are we approaching a budgetary number that makes sense for us to reconsider the van proposal again?
I don't think we ever got to a point where we shouldn't have, where we should let it go, because,
So
but
it's still on the table.
It's
Sure.
it's still
Should still
something
be
that,
I think it could be still on the
I-
table.
and I think, again, it's more of, we need to really look at
Right.
the population and where they're going.
Right.
Well, I
that-
would, as a suggestion, maybe incorporate that into the next budget cycle. obviously take a look at that
We
and
take a look.
work with FinCom on that issue. Because I remember on FinCom 3 or 4 years ago, we had extensive sessions on this.
Yes, we did.
There's a lot to think about. I
Right,
mean, face
right.
value, it does make sense, but when you start digging deeper,
Yeah.
it's really more of your mix of children and their ages.
And I think gas was
Right.
$2 a gallon then, too. And it didn't make sense. It
And,
was
you know, you
cheaper
have to deal with insurance, you have to
Right.
deal with
Staffing.
drivers, staffing, being responsible for that.
Right. There was a point, I think we needed multiple vans because they were going in different.
Yeah,
to
I
different-
think we were talking about two.
I certainly recall the proposal that we had, and it didn't really have much legs for
No.
whatever reason.
I think it's tough too, because I mean, the students can change, and then you
That's
could
right.
end up with
That's-
a bunch of
Okay.
vehicles
Right.
that you don't
Yeah,
have.
your demographics today
use
could
for,
be
and you're gonna
different.
need Donald Cutboard back in here.
No, you can't look at it year by year, you gotta look
Yeah,
at the
I
overall
mean, it's,
trends,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
if it's
that's
trending
right.
in-
We'd have to determine whether it made
Right.
sense.
Okay. So the request, the ask is an additional 250,000. Can we talk about,
The-
are those hard numbers or?
No.
Okay.
They're soft numbers at this point, and the reason why we're here now is because they're going through our process and our procedures to evaluate the situations, determine what's best for the children, and what our alternatives are. We probably aren't gonna have good numbers. Carol,
Well,
it-
we're trying to have as good a number as we can get. We base those estimates on like situations where because we're not sure exactly, as Ann said, all the little ducks aren't in a row here in terms of exactly what the costs are gonna be. But we have used similar situations to determine, you know, what a really fair estimate is. I mean, our goal would be that, if it were if we didn't spend 250, we aren't gonna, we're gonna give the money back. I mean, you know, it's really, you know, 250 is our best estimate. You know, maybe some things before town meeting, because we have, what, about a month, right? You know, maybe some decisions will be made during that time, and then certainly on town meeting floor, I would hope that the committee would come forward with an actual number.
based on the latest information.
Just tonight, we
have.
aren't able to do that.
So Mike, we
I know
we
you're
would-
closing the warrant
We can
tonight,
do we can put it in the warrant, but we don't have to put a number attached until we get to town meeting floor,
The number goes in the motion.
in the motion. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
So, yeah, as much information as we can have towards that
absolutely.
number at that
We will
point would be
definitely get
great.
you whatever. we
And it
can.
might be something that even, you know, as town meeting comes, we might have little bits and pieces more, but we would never take or request the funds until we knew what we were doing.
And then we could take it back in spring, I mean, right? That could
Correct,
come
yeah,
back- come
yeah,
back to
I
the
mean-
town at spring if it was 125,000 or.
Right, and
No, it would be the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so we'd have to wait for it to filter back through free cash. Okay.
but we can
yeah,
make you aware of where we were in the process and what it was shaking out to be.
So for the public's knowledge, what's the alternative if this does not happen? What happens? Are we looking at cutbacks, layoffs?
To be honest,
in order to fund this?
It's interesting because we've gone back and forth. For, you know, do we ask now?
Wait till for spring.
Do we wait till the spring when we know what our numbers are going to be? The problem that we face is that if we can't fund this out of our budget as it's set right now. So if it's not funded by the town, then we'll have to adjust our budget accordingly, which would be, you know, either, we haven't really sat down and said where it's
No.
gonna come from, but if we wait until the spring, we've expended most of our budget come May.
Right.
We have, you know, a month and a half left of the year. So we'd have to that's why we're here now.
We wouldn't have any place to go for the money.
I understand. You'd
Yeah.
have to cut some,
Right.
you know, there'd have to be
Right.
some significant cutbacks.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So, had this discussion with the superintendent and the school committee. A couple months ago, we were talking about this, and I think the big interesting, the thing that I learned is that this is really a state mandate for the town of Georgetown, for any town in Massachusetts in terms of what we pay here. We put it in the school budget because obviously it has to do with education. And it's the right thing to do because we need to take care of the special needs children. But I think it sometimes gets misconstrued as, we'll call it the variable and manageable budget that the school committee has to manage versus the set budget that they really have no control over.
Right.
So it could be easy to say, hey, the school committee's coming back tonight asking for more money. You know, from the perspective of, from the budget that we voted in terms of when there was override and so forth. But this is really, it's really a town budget. We put it under the school because it has to do with education, but it really is not in their control. it's sizable, and it is what it is. It's what the state says we need to do. And it's, again, based on the needs of each individual student, so it's very hard to predict, or it's a challenge to predict, because new students can come in, needs can change, and it's not like everyone's the same. So I think it's important for everybody to understand on this particular issue, when a request comes in, it's meeting a state mandate required for the town. It goes in the school budget, but it's not the same old sensitive discussion that we have in terms of what the school budget is and how it's, and how it's being utilized. And I think that's really important to understand. That's something that we had talked about before, to make sure the town really understood that,
Right.
because it was confusing. I mean, it took
Yes.
me a while to figure out. I'm like, oh, I get it. We don't have control of this, and it's important, so we need to do it. But I just want to point that out to everybody, and I think it'll be worthy to, if this gets on the warrant, to point it out during town meeting, that everybody understands this is different. It goes in the school bucket, but it's not really the quote-unquote classic school budget, in
And
my opinion.
The thing that is also, I mean, it's controllable to a certain degree. Carol's done an amazing job
Right.
developing a program, especially at the high school, the Compass program, where we have 13 students enrolled in that program right now, that until that program was up and really well established, could be considered for out-of-district placements. It's not to say that we can handle every single
No.
student, which we
No.
would like
No.
to keep them in the town that they live in, but it's something that we've really been working hard to manage those costs in-house as best we can, and as appropriate.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, how accurate have you been in the past in terms of budgeting this? I know this comes up quite a bit, and the question is, are we budgeting enough to start with?
Well, we budget what we know. What a lot of districts do is they'll put in a reserve for like an out-of-district placement, one place, an out-of-district placement or transportation. But, in the interest of trying to keep our request as minimum as it can be, and to be as transparent and accurate as, we feel we've made that commitment to the town, we budget what we know. Now, sometimes with the circuit breaker money, that'll help us with some of the reimbursement if our costs don't go up in special ed. We can sometimes rely on a little bit of that to help us with, like an extra tuition that might come up. But what Ann is pointing out here is that, 23% of our budget, based on actuals. And we have actually absorbed some other children. We just had 6 children move into the district within the last month, all autistic. And we didn't send them out. We're educating them all in-house. We had a student who did go out of district. We took the aid and we redirected it so that we could make sure there was appropriate support for these children who are coming in. So, but, I have to say in the last 5 years, $200,000, it's not unusual for a $200,000 swing to occur. Not because of anything that we've done. The cost of some of these out-of-district placements it's very expensive.
No, I absolutely understand that. I guess the question is, are we budgeting enough?
Well,
at the
we're not
beginning of the
budgeting any
year?
reserves. We are budgeting actuals.
And if you look at the last 5 years, and we're talking a couple $100,000 out of those last 5 years, how many times have we had to go back for, significant, or move your budget around to pay for those?
Every year
Every
we have
year.
to do that.
So the reality is, we're just not budgeting a reserve that really needs to be budgeted. Okay.
Yeah, and I think there was some revolving funds that we were able to scrape a little here, scrape a little there to
That's
get
right.
by, but,
That's right.
but those days are pretty much
That's right.
Right.
gone by the wayside. Okay. All right, any other questions for schools?
Is this your first stop? Have you been to finance with this? And,
Actually, this is the first
This
stop.
is the first stop.
And I think only because
The
of
chairman is
the,
aware of the situation, so we'll have a
So
conversation.
we'll be heading it to them. I believe their next meeting is next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday.
I think
believe
because
it's
the
October
warrant's
3rd.
closing tonight, I think that was the pressure to come here tonight.
Right.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we're gonna get to warrant discussion at some point. Peter's not here, so we're waiting on Peter Durkee for another warrant discussion. While we have you, there's well, it's more maybe school building committee, the $85,000. Have we heard anything back from the state about partnering? I know we were close to maybe getting a decision. Are they gonna help us out with that? $85,000 at all?
You know, David,
High
we
school?
are expecting a decision, but we have not received
Haven't
a
heard anything yet.
decision at this point.
Okay.
But you know what, I'm happy to drop an email and just see what the status of that is.
Hopefully we'll hear by tomorrow night. Maybe Chuck and those
Hopefully,
guys.
yeah, that's why I'll try to
Alright.
drop an email and
Have some
hopefully
good
have
news for
something
us.
by tomorrow night for you.
All right, great.
If I might, on, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Wasn't that on that, didn't they have a date of not till October, though, that they're having?
October
their meeting?
3rd is the meeting they're going to be reviewing the proposed option or the preferred
Reality,
option.
we can't expect anything until that time.
Well,
No, 'cause I think that was
I think
pen-
they were
yeah, that's
talking
the-
about trying to do it before October
Right.
3rd.
They were gonna give us an answer before that, and the October 3rd is Pembroke specifically
Yes.
on their agenda. I didn't think that the high school feasibility study was any
No,
part of
it's
it.
No,
not.
that's
No, it's not.
correct.
But we're working with the MSBA staff on that
Right.
discussion.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
Oh, the other one?
Yes.
Go ahead, Gary, sorry.
If I can, I mean, you're on the subject, and I had highlighted something on our minutes, and that was at our last minutes, we stated that there was gonna be a big, we're discussing the new article waiting until spring, that's in the minutes, which I've been to a couple of the meetings and brought it up, and nobody seems to wanna wait till spring. And I'd just like to throw out for discussion, should we just include money for the high school and not so much the study? I mean, we've got some ideas what the cost is. Should we just do it now on this?
Well, I don't know if we're prepared to really put a number in there for, I mean, that would have to be done tonight, right, Mike? Or
Not really.
Well, it'd have to be done by town
by
meeting.
town meeting?
But I,
We still have that option though, because doesn't it say, and, you know, that tie
Yes.
language is there, right? Because Elm
I-
Street,
the whole idea is to get participation from MSBA.
Right,
They're not gonna participate unless they see a,
feasibility
right.
study.
Feasibility study.
Right.
But then again, there was questions about if they participate, like many of the times when they participate, they want the whole school upgraded also, and we never really got a hard answer on that. Cause that was one of the things that we said about the thing with Pembroke, that when you partner with them, they want the whole school brought up to today's standards.
Well, Chuck, they have
And
looked at
that,
that, Gary.
you know, we were-
They, in all honesty, they have
Well,
looked
we've
at
not got a
that.
hard answer on that, so that's,
Are we still waiting for final language from the MSBA that for them to participate in the Pembroke project, what's gonna be required, right?
That's right, we're still
We're
waiting
still
for
waiting.
that.
So they could come and say, and I'm not saying they will.
No,
But
but
they
they
could come
could.
and say you have to do the high school at the same time, or they could say you have
That's
to
what
approve a
I'm saying.
They may hold
feasibility
it. They
study,
may-
or, and that's gonna depend, and that's the language we're waiting for to see what their requirements are to participate in the
Right.
grant.
I think it's possible, based on the conversations that I've heard, you know, with the MSB, at some of the MSBA meetings. It's possible that they could say that we're gonna support the cost of the Pembroke project, but we need you to have your community vote the feasibility study. Because they see that as being an important next step. They don't necessarily say that you have to do the renovations, but they wanna, they're, part of the commitment they'd like to see Georgetown show is to the completion of that feasibility study, to get hard numbers, and then they'll be able to determine whether or not they're gonna come in with the town, you know, in some kind of a partnership.
Just get back to Gary's point about doing the whole building over. That was discussed, and
Yes.
I think I did bring up some questions about that, and based on what the modifications were, didn't require structural, all those types of structural issues that Pembroke caused, and all, you know, to make things all be done over. It was modification of classrooms and interior space, that didn't boost up, you know, having to reshore this or take out this beam, or, you know, it was pretty superficial in terms of what the improvements were.
was more
It's not gonna be
cosmetic.
cheap. You know,
Well,
it was,
that's just
you know,
it.
2 to
I
4
mean-
million sticks in my mind. We were
Yeah,
at
that's
2
what it
million,
was.
then the last I heard, it was getting closer, you know, upwards to 4. That's when we said feasibility study to really get it done right. You know, exactly the right number and what needs to be done. So it wasn't a major $25 million overhaul of the school. You know, it was within reason in terms of what needed to be done. It was more superficial stuff than anything. But, and I'm talking superficial, like maybe 2 to 4 million, I can't believe I'm saying that.
We are, but.
That's crazy, it's just crazy.
If I might, I mean, I just think it would be a real disservice to the district to have the town perhaps approve this project, and then next time around, when we asked for the more money that we paid to do the feasibility study for, say, you've gone deep enough into our pockets, and then end up not funding something, and then what do you do?
Right.
So, I mean,
But there is that
just-
risk.
it doesn't
I agree.
seem, it just doesn't seem a way to go.
Well, again, we don't know what the MSBA is gonna say on October 3rd.
Right,
They may say,
right.
you know, this is on hold until we hear exactly what you've said. That could come up, that could happen, it's a possibility. We'll see, you know, we'll see how that all shakes out when we get to the meeting, but, and they're keenly aware, they're very, very bright and very much on top of the situation. Because they, you know, if they're gonna part with their money, they wanna make sure that this whole thing is gonna work, and work right,
Right.
you know, so. So we, you know, again, that's the unknown, and we'll know October 3rd where the MSBA stands on that.
But I definitely will drop an email to Katie DeCristoforo and just see what the status of that information is.
Yeah, it would be
and-
great if they're partnering, because then
Yeah.
they're partnering, like Gary says, we've got them partnering
With the-
with whatever the improvements need to be done. You know,
Right.
and hopefully we can do a 54% share like we've done
Be nice,
with Pembroke.
be nice.
53 or whatever that number came out to.
Right, okay.
Okay,
I'll do what
Great.
I can on that, Gary.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, the Peter's still not here, so let's get some other things done. Although, Wayne, are you here with Peter, or are you on?
Yeah, I'm back in Peterborough.
He's got your back, I can see.
Yeah. All right, so, we have minutes to approve from September 10th, 2012. Everybody take a quick look at those, and I would entertain a motion to accept.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from September 10th, 2012.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
That's just what I just brought up, that just to remind us that we were going to keep talking on the school building project.
Oh, we're gonna get there, right, when we get to the warrant.
Obviously.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay,
I abstain.
And one
I was not
abstention?
here.
okay. Let's see. There's a request to recognize, October 24th, United Nations Day, and issue a proclamation. I know that in the past we've, have not done this. So anybody feel like making a motion on that?
No, thank you.
Okay, so that's a pass. There is a resignation of Paul Nelson from the Conservation Commission. So we need to vote to accept it. The letter is in your packet.
We didn't do that
You
last
don't
time.
have,
You
you
don't
don't
have
have
to
to
You
vote.
have to vote to accept,
Oh,
right?
sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Just,
My bad.
We wouldn't let any, no
Hey,
one
listen,
would
I'm
be
trying to
here.
go
We wouldn't
quick.
let
You
anyone
can't
go if we had to vote on it.
Let's see, we also got correspondence from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission on the Citizen Planner program, so if anybody is interested to volunteer on their community's planning board, Conservation Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, community leaders ask that these volunteers sit on the various boards and commissions, evaluate proposals, interpret regulations and statutes and render decisions. So there's actually a training course and a certification program that Merrimack Valley Planning has. So if anybody's interested in that, let's contact Janet, and we can see if we can sponsor you through that program. Also, ZBA has an opening, or a couple openings from what I understand. So if anybody's interested in serving on the ZBA, please contact me through Janet at the Selectmen's office. And if anybody here has a candidate, please come forth with that candidate. Surplus property we did. All right, well, Peter's not here, so what we'll do is go ahead and start out on the warrant and talk about free cash. So Mike?
Okay, you have the most up-to-date draft of the warrant.
Is that the one with the star or number
With the
7?
star on
Is that our new
Star.
system?
Star is number 7? or-
Does the final have a move?
All right,
it. I forgot to put a date on it, so I started quick.
We, of course, there's the Pembroke ballot question. It's going to be on the state ballot. We just found out today it's going to be question number 4. on the state ballot. And the state ballot is gonna be a two-page ballot. And question number 4 is gonna be on the back. So if you don't turn the ballot over, and you're not gonna be able to vote for or against the school. And I was told by the town clerk today, they cannot tell you to turn the ballot over. They can just hand you the ballot and say, go vote, and you can leave the whole ballot blank on the back if you're not aware.
Question, it has to pass both, correct?
It does,
Town meeting and ballot.
yes. So
Lovely.
that's,
Thanks for the great news.
yeah. The STM 1301 adjustments to the operating budget. At this point, it doesn't look like we're going to have any adjustments, mostly because the Finance Committee at their meeting last week made a number of reserve fund transfers to basically cover any shortages that we had. You can see a list of them here. We had some unanticipated short-term loan expenses of $600. We've had 2 liability claims for, that triggers our copay, which is $7,500 for a claim. We anticipate paying 2 of those. One is due now, and one will be due in all likelihood before the end of the fiscal year.
These are vehicle accidents?
No, these are liability claims.
Oh,
The town has been sued. One is a employment practices claim, and the other is, has to do with special education.
that's the same line item, vehicle property and liability?
Yes,
Oh,
it's all in one.
okay.
And then this is more of a housekeeping item. Last budget season, the Finance Committee did agree to add hours to the ZBA clerk from 10 3/4 hours a week to 18, and to also include a office expense line item, which they've never had. Previous to this, it just came straight out of the revolving fund. No other, all other departments have an expense line for known phone, postage, things like that. And as it was explained back in the spring, or the winter, if we keep tapping the revolving fund at the current rate, we have $1,500 a year to the negative on average. So we'd wipe out the revolving fund in about 7 years. And the Finance Committee did vote to approve this. When it got to the final printing of the budget, the old number was printed and the new number was not. So they made that adjustment to the wage line and to the expense line. And then the final figure, before we went to town meeting, we did not know what the final Merrimack Valley Planning Commission assessment was gonna be. It hadn't been increased for the last 5 years, and they had a small increase of $139.82, so we didn't have that budget. So a total of $70,270.82 was voted to be transferred from the reserve fund, which was 96,000, and there's a 7,500 and change still remaining in it.
75,000.
75,000, yeah, I said 100. So for that reason, I'm not anticipating any other adjustments to the operating budget. Article 2 is the borrowing for the Pembroke School for a debt exclusion. As we heard tonight, we have a number, but it won't be confirmed until October 3rd. Right now, that number stands at 25,820,963. That's the amount that the town would have to borrow.
Right.
The full cost of the school is slightly over 46 million. We're gonna, as it stands now, it looks like we'll be receiving about $19 million from MSBA, which is 54% of the eligible costs. We've been through that as well. There's a lot of ineligible costs that are included in that 46 million. So,
Is that a pro forma you have there?
yes, this shows the financing options.
I've had a chance to go through with Mike. Can you verify the rates, Mike?
That's
Those are good rates?
That's still the going rate. And it's based on 20, 25, and 30 years. If we take it out for 20, it's a 4% interest rate. If you take it for 25, it's 4.5. 30-year bond would be 5%. This shows you what the annual debt service would be. It's a declining balance. We pay the same amount of principal every year, and the remaining interest payment, since the balance goes down, the interest payments go down. It's not like your average,
Right, it's not front loaded, it's
Home
simple,
mortgage.
it's basically simple interest.
yes.
So the question I had, when we had talked about this is, if the project takes 3 years, when do we borrow? Do we borrow the full boat the first year? You know, remember we talked about this, because it's gonna be advanced in stages. If it takes almost 3 years to build the school, when do we see the full effect? Does that just get put aside and then we bond it? Does the state float the whole amount until, in other words, that 19 million that they're gonna fund us may float us till we have to borrow, or do we borrow right off the bat?
Well, I'm meeting, our finance team is meeting with our financial advisor tomorrow at 1 o'clock. But as I understand it, we borrow the full amount right up front.
Day one.
Yes. We can put it in
So we
a
hold it
interest-bearing
on-
account
All right, good.
and
Okay.
have the interest has to be spent on the project. But if we took it out in increments, the cost of financing would go up. For instance, that $600, granted, it's well, I haven't even calculated it, but for instance, that $600 in issuing costs, we just had the FinCom raise. That was for two bond anticipation notes, and one was for $1 million and one was for $2 million, and it was $600.
My only comeback to that is, if you're gonna put it in an interest-bearing account, you're probably gonna get less than 1%, you're probably gonna get about a 0.5 percentage point.
I realize
So
that.
we're paying 4% on 25 million for maybe 2.5 years when we haven't spent it all. That, I mean, that's some serious money, it's a lot more than $600.
Yeah.
So that was my point, is to try to figure a way that we don't borrow the full 25 million day one because the shovel went in the ground. We would want to admit, hopefully, advance it over time, because that could save us some significant dollars. Again, I don't know how that works. We'd have to find out.
I'll find out for sure tomorrow.
'Cause I mean, if we put 25 million in the bag, like I said, we're gonna get 0.5%, but we're paying 4.5 for it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yep, so, the annual debt services range from, as you can see, on a 20-year note, 2.3 million. The 25-year note is 2.2 million, and the 30-year is 2.1 million. How that translates into tax rate, as you can see in the left-hand corner, 20-year bond would have a $15.65 tax rate. 25 years is less expensive. It's about 12 cents a thousand less expensive at 15.53. And the 30-year is not much different from a 25-year at 15.50.
But these are estimates now, Mike. This is not cast in stone yet. There are other things that could affect that tax rate.
Well, this takes into consideration a the 2.5 proposition, 2.5 increase. And so if, and it considers $119,000 in new growth.
Okay. And there's nothing significant falling off on other debt service that would help offset that tax rate.
That is correct.
Off until what, 2017?
Well, here's a
That's
copy
what I
of that debt schedule.
The thought process.
198,000 in growth?
I'm sorry?
Was it 198,000 in growth?
119.
119?
119.
119, okay.
So can I ask a structural question then? So the increase shown, that's to generate, let's just use the year one debt service for 20 year. That will generate the 2.3 million? In other words, if our payment's going down over time, and we do a one-time tax increase, how do we account for the fact that we have more money, technically, it seems like we'd have more money coming in than we need.
Each year, the debt exclusion is lowered.
Okay, so
So it comes off, it
with the
comes.
tax rate, again, so everything stayed equal, let's say, the tax rate would come down
Slightly.
slightly, that's what I mean, but I mean, you're 10 years out, or 5 years out, you're at,
Well, that's, if you go back to the debt service, I calculated, on the 20-year note, the amount decreases $52,000 each year.
gotcha, okay.
It goes down 46.8 on the 25 and 43,750 on the 30. So, but that just comes off the debt exclusion. It does lower your taxes slightly by $50,000 approximately. But in the big picture, that's probably less than a cent.
So a real tax effect or a real debt exclusion that falls off the roll is we don't really get there till 2018, is what you're saying, before we could see some significant savings that could eat into these payments.
Yeah, well, 2014 will
About 134,000.
receive about 134,000.
Towards the 1,040,000, if there's nothing else that we have to borrow for to fix.
Right.
Got it.
But if you see, if nothing else changes, if the, so I had to include this, that last entry, the Pembroke feasibility study, BAN.
Right.
In FY13, see, we have exclusion for the first 2 years.
Deferred. Yeah.
Deferred, the payments are deferred.
Right.
But we have to start paying in FY 15. Now, if the bond for the school passes, this will be rolled into the bond. And that's already calculated in that $25 million figure.
Got it.
So if those 124,000 could go away.
It was close to 400,000 that we
Yes.
borrowed, yeah. Okay. And if we did, and hypothetically, if we didn't do the school at all, and we just scrapped this whole program, we'd still have to pay the 124, the 123, and the 122.
Absolutely.
Those are definites.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, and as you pointed out, in 2000, I ran out of chart, but in 2018 would be the final payment for the school refunding bond. And so FY 19, our debt service drops by 250,000.
Now, Mike, this is a hypothetical that I've been thinking about is, we have a good year in terms of free cash. There's no reason why we couldn't go in and pay off that school refunding bond early in order to give a little bit of tax relief towards the effect of the school in future years. Is there a prepayment penalty if we paid early?
I don't know, and I don't know, some bonds have a call feature that you can call the bond.
Right.
But I can find, I'll make that part of my,
Because hypothetically, if
tomorrow with finance.
if we wanted to
advisor.
fund, well, we'd have to probably pay the whole thing off to see the full effect. Or could we take free cash money, for instance, here's a hypothetical. We will see the full effect of the school in 15. That's basically when we have to start paying, if we don't have to advance the money until the school's halfway done, say. So say we get to 15. And we find that there's 2 payments in here that would affect the debt schedule. And if we have free cash, could we take free cash, make those payments, and out of free cash, and that would basically help offset some of this payment here? And how would you adjust the tax rate? Now, those are the questions I would have, because we do have additional cash. For instance, this year, we have 1.1 million less whatever we're gonna come to. We could hypothetically make a payment on one of these bonds in order to help offset this $15.53 tax increase, or tax rate. I mean, that's intricate, but we'd have to really,
You
could
could
we do that,
use.
pursue that option?
Yeah, and basically what you do, you don't directly pay it off with free cash. You put the amount of free cash
In
in
the
the
budget?
operating budget as an additional revenue.
Okay,
So
right. So
So it
that, and that would
offsets.
essentially, for that particular year,
it would be a wash.
that would bring down that $15.53 tax rate down to maybe 15 and a quarter, or whatever the number is,
Mhm.
hypothetically.
Yes.
Okay, so we could give some tax relief towards the school with some free cash if we had it.
Yeah, and you could always use the stabilization fund the same way, because
Right,
that's what
exactly.
it's a tax
Right.
stabilization fund.
Right. Okay, well, I just wanna make sure those are options are there to take a look at. Yeah, just to
Yep.
see if there's a prepayment penalty, because, again, if we wanted to, I mean, if you looked at, that, school bond, I mean, what's still owed on it, or we could clean up a bunch of these other ones and give some relief to that tax rate because of the effect of the school, or make, there's other options to plug in some free cash towards the payment towards the school going forward, the yearly cost, if we have a good year. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, if we had $500,000 in free cash that we were gonna, that we had, we could say, put that in the line item to pay towards the $1,040,000, which would in turn drop the tax rate down to $15, or whatever that number comes out, 15 and a quarter, whatever it is, to give a little bit of relief.
Oh, you could always use free cash for that.
Okay, well, I just wanna make sure that was available to us. All right.
All right.
I mean, I looked at it, I think the 25-year is the way to go, I mean, based on everything Mike has presented, but who makes that determination? Do we make that determination at town meeting?
No, the Board of Selectmen
We're gonna
make
vote.
that decision.
Okay.
You direct the treasurer how to
After
go
the
out.
fact or before?
It's best to wait till the bond gets, goes out to bid.
Okay.
But it would have been, it's my recommendation that we go with the 25-year bond as well.
Why, what are you thinking?
There's more, even though you end up paying $4 million more over the 25-year, that extra 5-year period, the tax rate is, the biggest delta in the tax rate is between the 25 to the 20. You're paying 12 cents a thousand less. If you go down to 20, you go up to 30 years, you're gonna be paying $8 million more, and you only see a 3-cent deduction in the tax rate.
Gotcha.
Because of the increase in the rate.
Yep.
And
50 basis points hurts.
So,
Mike, I have a question for you, more on the topic of debt schedule here. Can this, can any of these bonds that we're actually paying on be consolidated into a single bond?
well,
Because I see interest rates of 0.9 to 5.37 and everything in between.
we have done that in the past.
Yeah.
And, after, we're going to have a bond call, have our rating reviewed in anticipation of the school bond. It could make sense to do that again, although I'm not,
I'm sure there's some items on this that can't be included, but it's just, it's something to review.
yeah.
I mean, there's only one there that really seems to be high, the rest of them seem to be in line. And that's why I questioned the 4, 4.5, and 5 being on the kind of on the high side, especially where 30-year rates are right now. You know, so, you know, just a double check, that would definitely influence this a
There's a
lot.
project for you.
Yeah, yeah, just, you're meeting with them tomorrow, right? So
Yeah.
just double check on the interest rate, because the interest rate seems a little high to me. I mean, too bad we couldn't lend to a municipality.
Well, if you look, most of these were in the early 2000s, right? So, you know, we're dealing with a whole different time period that those rates were, those bonds were,
Yeah, those were good rates, I mean.
yeah, they're not bad. I mean,
No,
I
they're
just,
definitely good, but
But my thought was to pay some of those off early, consolidate some, and then lessen the effect of the $1,040,000 on the tax rate. That was my thought process on this, to really
those
take a look
are,
at
those
it.
are really the best rates we can get based on what you're seeing?
That's what our financial advisor is telling us. Yeah, they're going out, that's what, when other municipalities go out to bid, that's the rates they're getting.
Really?
Don't they know our super duper
We need
financial management around here?
we should issue our own bonds.
Yeah. Can't we
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work.
self-fund?
All right, so
I have a printing press.
this is information for us to, you know,
All right.
to keep a
Thanks,
little good eye
Mike.
on,
Yeah, this
This is helpful.
good numbers, thanks.
in anticipation of some major decisions to be made after we find out, you know, what the state's gonna say on October 3rd, and what our citizens are gonna say for this project, so. All right, very good job, Mike, on that. All right, do we want to break now and bring Peter up? And his backup is in the audience too, so we can bring him up too.
Yeah, let's do.
Pete, come on up.
Good evening.
How you doing? All right, so Pete, we're here to talk about the Elm Street proposal. And I want to fire this electronic baby up. Oh, you're gonna give it to us in writing again?
This is a grant program that the town can apply for. You have to be part of this Safe Routes to School program for a year before you can apply for this grant. And this grant could get you between $300,000 to $800,000 for off-site improvements to schools, to the, so the kids have a safe route to school.
No.
So, but you have to belong to this program for a year. I've talked to Carol Jacobs about this, and she's gonna sign up, I believe. And, you know, some of the things that this grant will do is sidewalk improvements, traffic calming and speed reduction improvements, pedestrian and bicycle crossing improvements, on or off-street bicycle facilities providing school access, secure bicycle parking, traffic diversion projects near schools. So this would be a great grant to try to go for Elm Street because of the cost it is to repair or to, you know, to do the work on Elm Street. I have one price of 1.8 million, and I have this is the pavement management program that it's in the beginning stages of it. This is just the draft. And Elm Street, it shows that 186,000 to you know, to fix Elm Street, but that doesn't include drainage, that doesn't include curbing, that doesn't include sidewalks, that doesn't include traffic lights. So this one here with the 1.8 million is a closer, because if you put curbing in, you gotta put more drainage in. But this Safe Routes to School will be a good grant, and we have time, because if the school does pass, it will be, you know, 2 or 3 years before the school's done. We'll be in this program for a year, and we can apply for this grant and put this towards sidewalks, curbing, crosswalks, traffic lights.
Mhm.
So,
A lot of the items that are included in the 1.8 million.
and this is a federal grant.
Okay. So what if hypothetically, we did the work and we were, how long do you have to get approval before you do the work, or does some work within a certain period of time qualify?
For this grant,
Yeah,
I think you have to, they have to say okay first. We can't just go out and do the work and then try to get money back. We have to get the grant first, use that toward this, and use it toward the road maintenance program, you know, to do the drainage, to do the curbing. But that would be a huge help.
yeah, because,
You know, the more money we get from them, the better off we would be.
right, and we're not going to start Elm Street until the school's almost pretty much done anyway.
Yep,
So that's probably 2.5. I keep saying 3 years, I don't know if I'm totally right on that, but
I think it's,
2.5 to 3 years.
Yep.
So that would give us enough time to be in the program and get all the paperwork in.
yep,
Okay. Good. Well, that's at least, you know, another way to try to help fund these,
yep.
what we need to do on Elm Street. Everybody got a copy of the proposal for Elm Street, right? Yes or no?
Like this from the engineer.
Yeah.
It's not in your packet.
It's not in your packet, it was
I
an email.
sent it out,
Oh, okay.
You know, it's a breakdown of
Weeks
of
ago.
how much it will cost for engineering, how much it will cost for drainage, curbing, sidewalks, roadway, traffic lights. One good thing is at the end of Elm Street and East Main Street, there is plumbing for traffic lights. So you wouldn't have to rip up East Main Street to put traffic lights in. It's already plumbed. You just have to buy the structures.
So what about Elm Street and,
Central,
yeah,
I would like to, it would be part of the engineering, I would try to make that like a T intersection, make it so it's not a 5-way intersection with Elm East, Nelson, and Central.
right.
You know, make it a T intersection, so you can't come from East Street to get to Elm Street, and make Nelson Street a T intersection also, that there's not
With
two.
lights?
I don't know about lights, that would be more money, that would be at least, I bet you close to, you know, $250,000 for lights there.
So that was not in the proposal?
No.
Okay, that was my question.
You know, one other thing that would be a thought would be to look into whether we should make Brook Street a 2-way street, because that would help a lot of traffic going back to the center of town. Buses can't make the turn that's there now, trucks can't make the turn back toward the center of town, so it may be an idea to look at Brook Street and incorporate that in with this too.
Okay, so we have an article, a placeholder for Elm Street rehab at 1 point. Well, we're not gonna put a number in there anyway, it's just basically the language, right, Mike? The number will come up at the end.
right.
Any questions for Peter? I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch, so let's go in order. Gary, any questions for Peter on the proposal?
You know, and there is, I could look into the tip for this, and that's, you know, it would probably be at least 10 years out.
Yeah.
They're all tapped out.
I wouldn't say they're all tapped
Oh,
out,
but
but
I mean,
there's
they've got a
a,
lot of
Their
commitments.
schedules,
yeah.
their
their schedule's ridiculous.
Pretty loaded.
So, Gary, anything for Peter?
just right now on this first thing he gave us, the safe routes to school, I mean, that's hopeful that we could get that. What, is there matching funds with this? Is this 100% for all of this?
All I know about this, I talked to the woman the other day, is if you belong to this program, you can get between $300,000 and $800,000. And they'll come out and, you know, reading this, it may include engineering. That, you know, because they have a team that comes out and looks at your site and, you know, looks what you need to do to improve it so it's safer.
So 300 to 800,000. I mean, this is like so many things. I mean, questions. We've gone from, I mean, you did have the figure there, 187 is what
But
you got
that's
there.
just
And I
roadway.
realize that, and I mean, at first, we went somewhere from, when the first time you were in with us back in July, I mean, we could possibly do this for around 400,000, to now we're up to $1.8 million. We might get some matching funds from the federal, so it's,
To be fair, we've also added requirements. You know,
I guess my question is, and not to put anything off, because I think it should all be one package. But if we're not doing it later, do we put this on now?
Again, for tonight's purposes, I think we put it on there.
I mean, well,
Absolutely.
we've got it here as a placeholder.
Right,
right.
and we'll see if again, if the state comes out and says, look,
But
this is
to
gonna wait
To
till
what you
spring.
said earlier, do we go out and do we borrow $1 million, possibly think about borrowing $1.8 million when we may only end up spending 400,000 that we can take out of the general budget? I think we've got a lot of questions
On how to finance it.
yeah, so I'll let the rest of you guys ask your questions, and maybe I'll have some more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Stu,
The $1.8 million, is that just one bid, or would you do multiple bids to get?
That's an estimate, that there
That's an
was,
estimate,
yeah.
okay. So then, at a
could be less.
certain point, if it gets approved through town meeting and all, then we go to bid with various contractors.
We'd have to design it first, then it would go out to bid.
Okay. How's the process go? You put it on town warrant, it's $1.8 million estimate, then there's gonna be obviously design and engineering
Which is included
fees.
in this price.
Right, but it's,
So we would have to have it designed, and then we would have to put it out to bid.
okay. What are the estimates right now for design and all that?
That's 1.8, that's this price right here. This is what this is an estimate.
What's the design for
The
it?
design portion of it though. Guesstimate or ballpark. Because that's gonna be a firm number.
Yep.
The other stuff's gonna be depending on where bids come in from contractors, obviously.
We can put the design on the bid though, correct?
I don't know, do you have to? I don't think you have to put designs out to bid, do you?
Sure.
No.
No, you don't have
Because
to.
in professional services, you don't have to bid.
But you can though, I'm saying.
No, you could, and I think it would
You
maybe
do
be-
a design selection, but it's not based on price, it's based on ability.
Okay. No, if you knew, I was-
$224,200 for engineering.
Okay.
so you think, you're confident that the 1.8 is enough?
It will be the, oh yeah,
That'd
I
be the
mean-
high end?
yeah.
'Cause your history, Pete, has been very good about, ask for X, and you always seem to come in
Well,
pretty far under.
yeah, we haven't, I mean, there was one job that they did the estimate for it, which was Plowbrook, and they said it was gonna be $68,000. We did it in-house for $20,000. So, I mean, it's a lot cheaper, but we could no way do Elm Street.
Right.
There's portions we could help with, but there's no way we could do Elm Street. There's a lot of work that needs to be done out there.
Yeah. This grant program, what's the likelihood of once you're in, did you ask that question with that lady? Once
She
you're in
seemed
for a
very
year, that
confident.
you're realistically getting money back?
She seemed pretty confident.
Now, it seems like in this, there's a lot of services that come, project construction, installation, that would offset, obviously, some of the
Yes,
numbers you have in the bid there, so
Yep.
that adds probably a wider variable at this point.
yep.
And then talking about T'ing at 97 and Elm instead of having lights, having a T intersection there basically.
We
It's
could
kinda what we're
always,
thinking.
put this estimate toward lights on both sides.
Yeah.
I think, making it so you can't drive from Elm Street to East Street is a plus, and making Nelson Street a T intersection is a plus, because you won't have the intersections
You're
right,
talking about one way coming out of Pembroke, taking a left, one way only?
no.
Still be
Just
two-way, but. yeah,
Making
I know
it so, like, if you go down Elm Street right now, you don't even have to go out on the Central Street to go to up East Street, you can just cut across. We would make
Right.
it two defined roads.
Oh, gotcha.
Nelson
okay.
Street would be a defined road, further up the street
Oh,
would make
okay.
it a T, so it's not, you can't just cut across, you have to go
Okay.
out and turn.
Yeah, okay.
You would have a better sight distance too, because instead of being at the road looking back like this, you would be at the road looking to your side.
Yeah, it's very hairy right now.
That's a dangerous spot.
Yep.
Yeah, it really is.
Because it is.
And then if you've got a lot of increased traffic, I mean, there's definitely major reconfig that needs to go on there. I think that's what I have for now.
Steve?
So, first of all, I think it's important to put it on with this warrant, because it could affect people's decision on the school in terms of total price, whether they, because we should let them know what the total price is, and/or that the school would get the street would get rehabilitated as part of the school project. I think both those issues could affect voters' decisions, and they should get the full story. So I would highly recommend we put it on this warrant, because it really does go together. I mean, we're separating it because it's MSBA money and so forth, but it really is one project. We're doing this and taking some extra improvements to us because of the school. For that 1.8 million, is that, do we know of any reimbursement, not counting this new one, that comes towards that, or is that net of those expected reimbursement? Is there any federal reimbursement, or is that?
Not unless we get on the tip, but that'd be years to wait.
Right.
We could use chapter 90 money.
So you need to elaborate a little bit on that, using chapter 90?
Chapter 90 money is money that we get from the state each year. Currently, it's, I wanna say it's, 300 and some change that we get each year from the, state to do road work.
Okay, so we could prioritize that money towards this, but would not be additional funds for this? It would just be a prioritizing of where we
And
put it?
I thought with the, school building project, they had 300,000 set aside for off-site improvements, but I don't.
That was at the base
Exactly.
driveway for
Right.
drainage, and
Yep.
nothing really
Nothing
to
nice
improve
or-
it.
It's really on-site improvements.
Right, it's mostly on site.
At that
I don't,
intersection.
because they were stopping up at the
They're
field.
They're not touching Elm unless they're connecting.
Yeah.
Right. So just to piggyback a little bit on what Steve said was, on the chapter 90 money, did you have any money earmarked for Elm Street in the next 3 years anyway? Not
No.
to that type of, those type of dollars, but
No.
nothing. Okay.
What do
I
you
mean,
use
I have
that
this
for?
pavement maintenance program, and it ranks,
Yeah, where,
Elm Street.
Where is it?
it's 69th out of 138 roads.
Okay. So I
And,
don't wanna see other roads
but-
suffer, because that's why I think it's a separate issue.
But, the cost benefit value for, meaning that, the roads that get used the most, it's ranked further back, it's ranked 84th.
Even
So,
with the school use?
well, that, they didn't take that into consideration. There's a school there now, but, the new school will, definitely have more traffic.
Right, but
So
where's
it-
it ranked now?
It's ranked 69th from, from
Right.
bad to good, so it's ranked 69.
In terms of traffic?
No,
Or
in terms
use?
of roadway,
Okay.
that, the
Quality.
condition of the road.
Okay.
But that doesn't take any consideration in what the purpose of the road is for, right? In terms,
No.
it's a school access road.
Yep.
Right?
I mean,
that's
there's different functional classes, but,
Yeah, but they still got that in the analysis. I don't, if it's, 68th you said, out of 100 and,
69th out of 138 roads.
right, so if you had 2 more what do we have, 2 or 3 more classes there, help me out.
I wanna say, right now, it's, 2 through 5.
So we're
Going
going,
from 440 to
K to
770.
6.
so we're almost doubling, pretty much. But don't forget, all summer is pretty much not used. I mean, there's reasons why it's ranked so low. I think a new school will move it up, but it's not gonna move it to number 1.
No.
Look,
Okay.
you're comparing
But
apples and
it's not,
oranges here.
this is just a pavement management program.
I understand.
When
Right.
you look at Elm Street and you have a chance of, somebody getting hurt because the sidewalks, you could just drive right off the road, right onto the sidewalk. That,
Where is it in your mind in terms of safety in the in the town?
it's definitely higher up there than 69th.
Okay,
top 10, top 10%?
I would, it's definitely the top, 10, top 20.
Okay, that's my point.
you know?
Well,
Especially if this project gets done,
it
it,
just wasn't number one, that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to.
I hear you.
Okay. All right. Steve, you all set? Phil?
Yeah, I've still got mixed feelings on putting this on the warrant now. I think that, what I wanted to make sure is that we at least educated the town on what this was for, in terms of the total investment. I still think that we should probably have a chance to discuss that further, and we will. And the only reason I say that is, A, we don't need to borrow the money just yet. And I'm sure there's some way to, if we do borrow it, we defer payment on it. I don't know, let's assume that we couldn't for a second, but I don't know if it's the right thing to do to put this on the warrant right now. We don't need the money for a couple of years, and there's a potential for free cash and other things that could come up that might be able to help us out. I don't know, just ideas. That said, there were a couple other questions I had. Wayne, while you're here, is there any requirements on the electrical department if we update that road, fix in?
That was my question to Peter. If we're gonna, this federal program he's looking at, if they're gonna do a similar design to like they did on East Main Street, where they require the sidewalks to be X so wide, and the ADA is obviously got an ADA requirement. Is there any money in that 1.8 for the moving of the poles, the utilities, and the water and that stuff?
to my knowledge, there isn't, and I don't know, I know that the water's fine, I've talked to Glenn about that,
Okay.
and that would be, water department that would have to take care of anything with the water.
Well, the poles would probably be a problem.
Let's say there's 25 poles, or 20 poles on that street. What does it typically cost to move?
Well, I just gave Mike a price for the poles just to do the road into the school, which is 10.
Yeah,
That's $46,000.
so another 100 to
I could easily,
200,000.
I could probably easily spend 100,000, and then the phone company, I believe, now charges to do it too.
Okay, I'm just trying to take any unintended consequences off the table.
I think I agree with you. I don't think you can spend, we have to put a number on it right now, but at some point, after November, this passes, we have a window where the town has to do something with that street. And, when the bill comes in at 1.8 or 700,000 or wherever, we gotta have that money.
Right.
I don't know where you're gonna get it.
Well, maybe we put extra money away in the stabilization fund or something for it, but, I haven't spoken with Glenn, and, typically when you tear up a road, if there's any water pipes that have to be replaced or close to being that age, he doesn't think any of those water pipes need to be, or should be replaced.
And, no. I wanna say that's a 10-inch main out there, and I think it's an 8-inch, or it's 12 on Elm and 8 or 10 going up the road to Pembroke. And I know that they did talk about looping it instead of just having a dead end. So that is part, going out that emergency exit or entrance, that would go out that way and tie back into Elm Street. And that's in this school building project, that's already planned.
That's in there, yeah.
Phil, can I just build on one of your questions? Would utilities be brought underground in a project like this, or is that a major effort, or is that a
The
good or bad
utilities
thing?
for the school,
Well, on,
Like
on
according
Elm
to
Street.
the school, the engineer there, they will not, they're only gonna pay to put utilities from where it ends right now to the new building.
No, yeah, I mean, with Elm Street, if we did a redo like that,
No.
so that's a big difference.
You'd
Okay.
have to do all the houses
Yeah.
too. 'Cause you'd have to.
We'd probably have to double that price.
Right, that's what was the question.
No hydrants or anything that need to be moved, or anything that you know of?
Nope.
Okay.
So my question, I have a couple of questions, and then more maybe directed towards Mike. If we were to pass this at town meeting, we don't see the expense until we start the project. We don't borrow the money just because we have a warrant article. Just authorizes us to go ahead within a window until the work starts.
Yes.
And the work's probably not gonna be begun until 2.5 years down the road. Okay. Not that that's, just
No,
from a
that's
timing
key.
perspective,
That's
yeah, it's key.
You just get authorization to borrow.
Right. The contingency on, Peter, on the, that proposal seemed to be very high.
15%.
Yeah, it seemed a lot, like a big number.
Well, if it's 3 years down the road, who knows what the numbers are gonna
Right,
be.
Yeah,
right. Right, but I have trust that,
Yep, I know when like we're gonna be doing some paving in a couple of weeks, and I always add 10% to it.
Right.
And that's in a couple of weeks, and I know the numbers, so.
okay. I'm inclined to put this on the warrant, even if it doesn't pass, so that we're being upfront with everybody, saying, look, this school is also gonna bring improvements of Elm Street that are gonna have to be made. Because there's no sense in, having a broken down road that leads to a brand new school, in my opinion, just me. You want the kids and families traveling on that, a broken down road that's only gonna get worse and have a real negative impact, if not already, based on, well, it's only number 68 out of 100 and something, but the residents there, deserve to have the, a good street and with good sidewalks, as all of our residents do, but specifically, that's gonna take more of a beating. It needs to be shored up.
And this won't be any, as far as I know, unless there's an easement, but there won't be any takings of land. Not with because we have the right-of-way. He looked at the right-of-way, and the only thing we may need is an easement for, a drainage easement. That would be it.
All right, any other questions for Peter specific to the project? Yes, Mr. Fowler.
That is, you don't know that much about this grant, but you do know that, probably more about that one, your study. And I've brought it up before, but it goes with safety, and it's the character of the road.
Yes.
In your knowledge, is there any way to keep the character of the road, of the age of the homes and that in there, and yet still have the safety of?
There won't be sidewalks on both sides of the street. It'll be one side.
Yeah, but I mean, typically when you go to something like that, do you put curbing along the whole thing where the?
We could put, I believe it's curbing on one side of the street, the side that the sidewalks are on. So there won't be curbing on both sides.
Mhm. But would that,
You want
I
bricks?
even
You want a
question.
brick sidewalk? A nice cobblestone?
Well, no, but I mean.
Oh, I-
We could go with
I-
cement, or we could go with asphalt.
Yeah, cement might be,
The century ago.
cement might be more fitting. I mean, I did meet with, or I had an opportunity to talk with someone on a historic, end of things, and got a better feeling about the thing that they're doing with, trying to get the national, whatever it is, you get it stated a national area, but I guess it's not as restrictive as some of the things you read about the towns do themselves.
It'll be a s-
But still, I think as a town, we need to consider the
Keep the character
character
of that
of that
street.
road, and I just don't know that a granite curbing fits it. I don't know if there's another way to accomplish it. That's what I'm trying to bring up.
Not that's
Not to make anything more costly, you know
Well,
me.
that sounds like, that makes the dollar signs go off in my head when we say.
But then also,
No,
you're
you're right.
Wayne mentioned, you've got the American disabilities. Once you start doing something, you've got a much wider
Plus-
sidewalk than you've got now.
To be
Also,
eligible,
you have
too.
to move poles to meet those things.
Grades and stuff, and
So-
Peter knows more
Well,
about
Gary, I'm on the historical commission, so it's near and dear to my heart, and I've been thinking about trying to look at other communities that have done anything, and there's a tough balance between trying to, keep it in some sort of historical perspective while bringing it up to today's legal code. It really is tough, unless you want to spend some.
Significant
So
dollars.
I don't even know what those dollars would even go toward, right? So, I mean, I take tongue in cheek about brick brick sidewalks and stuff, but, I don't know, we'll look at it. I will make sure our commission takes a chance to look at it and see if there are alternatives when we need to start looking at that.
Okay, Pete, I think we've beat you up enough.
That's all right.
Wayne got off easy.
1.8 million, is that two set of traffic lights or just one?
I believe it's one, but I could check to make sure.
Yeah, 'cause they're gonna ask me.
All right, very good.
All right,
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Wayne. All right, so let's go back to the warrant.
Peter had that FEMA
Yeah,
grant.
we've got other
also.
business.
Oh,
FEMA grant.
excuse me, yeah, on the warrant article, sorry, Pete.
I don't think it's
The FEMA grant,
this is the fourth FEMA grant that we've received. This is for the culvert on Thurlow Street. And last Thursday, we just got the notice of intent for West Street. So we should be breaking ground on West Street this year
okay, good,
to get that done.
good.
So,
So
and
we
this is,
we have to put up 100,000 in order to get back 3,
it's not more, it may be 4.
maybe
I
4.
think it's 25%.
Okay. Mike, where do I see this? Is
Yeah, it
that
was
missing?
378 was the number.
Is that missing, what article is
I
that?
don't think it's on there.
It's not on the warrant.
This is not-
This is just, a
Oh, this
I
is
need
just-
Agenda
signatures.
item.
I was
I'm
stuck
sorry.
on the 100,000 we have to put up on.
No,
the-
no, we don't need any money for this.
Okay, no, where are we, but on the warrant side?
But on the warrant, I think there's something in there for a skid steer. All I need is a vote.
Page.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I have the money. What happened is, I got approval from CIP and from FinCom, but I had the money, so I didn't know I had to go to town meeting and ask for a lease over 3 years, you have to go to town meeting. So I don't need any money, it's just a yes or a no.
Okay, but where are we with the issue from, there was FEMA money? Again, maybe I'm.
That's for a FEMA mitigation grant.
Right.
That's not part of the warrant. That, I just need a signature.
I thought there was some matching money
No,
there.
it's going to be on the special town meeting warrant. It didn't make it to the draft.
Well, that's
I
what I'm
didn't-
saying,
I didn't
yeah.
forget it.
Right, so there's $100,000 there.
That's for the school.
Right.
That's not this grant.
Right, exactly. So it's not on our list.
That's for the middle high school?
That's for the
The
middle
water.
high school in Pearlie.
The water thing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the school.
I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I would make that up.
Play that on TV.
This is the grant for Thurlow Street that the highway department's after,
No, I'm not.
Iteration
but that's not me.
Okay.
didn't make it.
Didn't make it. All right, so we need to make sure that that's on there. Yes, sir.
On the thing you've got, just to clear it up on the skid steer. This looks like it's, you said you've already got the money?
Yes.
So this is similar to what we did with the school bus contract?
Exactly.
That's okay.
All I need is a yes
So
or
it's-
no.
It's, all right.
No money.
It's already in
And
your
then
budget.
that's what we approved a couple years ago. You traded in one and you took the lease on the other one.
Yep, for the loader.
Thank you.
Wasn't that this
Not yet.
spring?
Well, the springtime meeting, we traded in the backhoe and we got the mini excavator. I didn't know that we had to, I thought since they approved it and I had the money, I didn't have to go.
This-
But anything,
this
any
is-
lease over 3 years, I have
need to
to have
vote
town
to-
meeting approval.
Got a placeholder for it.
No, to apply for this grant.
Okay, so this is something totally different.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the fourth
Now you guys really can.
FEMA mitigation grant that the highway departments
For the
received.
culverts.
For
Okay.
the culverts,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right.
So this is for Thurlow Street.
Okay, so I need a motion on this, right? This has to be voted tonight, Mike? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the hazard mitigation grant agreement with FEMA between the town of Georgetown to repair Thurlow Street at Parker River Culvert, period. Right?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Any discussion? Hearing, go.
Just doesn't, it seems like a pretty stable culvert right now, but I guess.
If you
they've
go out
just-
there now,
they've-
you can see that it's starting to sink. It's, it's got a cement cover, but it's definitely old. It's got the stone
Yeah, it's a stone.
sidewalls. So it's on its way out. So I'd rather, while we're in the role of getting these grants, I'd rather go forward and get that done, because Thurlow Street is a road that needs to be repaved,
And so where does our 25% come from?
Chapter 90 funds.
Oh,
And another thing that's great about these grants, there's in-kind services. So if we go out there and send the conservation agent out to mark the wetlands, that comes off the price of this. So say it's, like, for instance, West Street's 85,000. If I bring them loam or gravel, anything that we
Right
do,
off.
if I'm out there watching, it comes off that $85,000. That's the great thing about this. So
Okay.
it's up to 85, but it could be less. And anything we don't use goes back into the Chapter 90 funds.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Right.
Okay, unanimous. All right, so you need to sign tonight, Mike, Peter?
Please.
There's so many stickies, I don't know where to sign. Do I sign them all?
All of them.
Every one of them?
Yeah.
Well, even the one that says email?
You can sign it. I can get
Yeah,
that to
you know what, let me do this
Yeah,
after.
that's
Yeah.
fine, you don't
Let me
have to
this
do it
after.
tonight.
It's too confusing right now. Okay. All right, so, we all set with Peter?
Did we, I just have a question. I know I missed the last meeting. Did we agree on the highway department approval of a lease greater than 3 years? That article, do we approve this on the warrant article?
No, we hadn't taken the vote.
This is the first time it's.
Right.
Okay, then that's what we have to do,
Okay.
right? Mr. Chair, I move that we support, right? Or we approve.
Place on
We
the-
place on the town warrant Article STM 13-07.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's a 5-0, right? Okay, Pete, I think we're all set.
We're not doing this one tonight?
We bounced all around here.
That's, he's gonna sign it afterwards, you already approved it. That's for the FEMA mitigation grant for Thurlow.
Okay. No, this was,
That's for the school, that's the school
Curly.
department.
Yeah, that's gonna be discussion on the warrant when we get to it. That's the 100,000, right? All right, so, let's go, I know, I told you it was gonna be confusing tonight, we're gonna bounce all around, so let's go back to the warrant. So, we got through,
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
thank you, we got through 1301, 1302, we're on the capital fund. Mike,
Right,
take these two together, cap fund and stab fund.
it's just how much, you want to fund in those two, the capital fund and the stabilization fund. The FinCom and the Board of Selectmen last year adopted a, policy, to, on an annual basis, add at least
Consider.
up to 25% of the available free cash into both of these funds,
25 each or up together?
each.
Okay.
Up to, doesn't mean we have to do
Uh,
25%.
Just for your information, the Finance Committee discussed this, and the only two votes they took had to do with these two funds. They voted to fund $300,000 to the capital fund and $100,000 to the stabilization fund. That's their recommendation.
So in order to even consider that, I need to, at least before, I think that I could ask this board to consider any type of transfer of free cash. Need to get a reconciliation on the free cash. So we got $1.1 million to start. I know it's not certified yet, right, Mike?
Right, but
Okay.
it's
It's close, but just close enough for.
Yep. I have it here, David.
Okay.
If you start with 1.1 million, and based on what we know now, capital fund for 300,000.
No, I don't, yeah, I wanna keep that off
All right,
for now. So I'm at 250, if we approve the 250, so that's potentially coming out of free cash, that gets us down to 850. That's where I'm at right now.
all right, well,
Yeah, 1.1.
Feasibility study, 85,000.
yeah, you got feasibility at 85,
Takes me
the
down to
sped
there.
at 250, and the FEMA match at 100, that's 435,000, it leaves a balance of 665.
Okay. All right, so that's 660. What about snow and ice? We don't have anything for snow and ice?
No, that, snow and ice would have to come out of there.
Okay, so what do we know where we are with that?
Well, no.
Because we
it's
budget, what, 100 and,
$103,000. A normal winter, we would need a minimum of 200,000 more.
Right.
It could be we've done 300,000.
because that gets us down to $465,000, right?
Yes.
So 465 times 25%, where's Mr. Smith with his funny calculator there?
275.
118,000, right?
Oh, the remaining amount?
Yeah, so we're down to 465. So, to me, that's the number we should use to consider whether we're gonna put 25% of that in the stab fund and 25% in that in the capital fund. Because we have to take out the potential effect of the other things, or we won't have enough money, right? Am I on the right path here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you are, but that's not that's not the policy that we've adopted. I think you're doing it logically, as opposed to the way it was stated in the policy, which is fine. Our intent is up to 25% of what's in it, not what's left of it.
Well, I mean, that's left up to interpretation. I mean, what's in it is what we have less we're potentially gonna spend. That's what's left, the way I read it. But anyway,
Well, no, because what you're doing is we gotta make a decision whether we actually put it in free cash, the stabilization, or actually use it for expenses.
yeah, you could look at it that way too.
That's logical, don't get
Right.
me wrong, but
Right.
I'm just saying that that's, if we, you know,
I just
I
don't
don't
wanna
wanna
put-
get in the habit of saying, let's pay everything off, and let's pay for everything, and then put 25%. I think it's, the spirit of what we try to do is take the lump sum and get 25% of that into the thing, if we can, of course.
Right, well, that's where the up to comes into, and this is the up to reconciliation, in my
Yep,
opinion.
no, I hear you.
You know, you say potato, I say potato.
Well, out of the 465 left, do we put it all in the stab and cap?
No, I don't
That's-
think so. I think
I'm
you-
not saying we do, but
Right.
that, you know, that's
Mike,
about
what's
what we
the
should
number
be
you
putting
can
in
transfer?
anyhow.
Is it
sorry?
the stab fund's the one that you can transfer?
You need a two-thirds
You
vote
can-
for any stab fund.
Where,
right now.
at town meeting?
Yes.
No, remember they started a reserve fund this year, so the FinCon can have the flexibility. We
Yeah.
put some in the reserve fund.
No, that's been eaten up, the reserve fund.
Right,
money's-
but it has been eaten up, but that's a fund
It's
that
here.
allows some flexibility.
It's not been eaten up, it's basically right here.
Right.
Because the reserve fund is back down to 96,000.
And that's
We
coming
just
back in
spent
free cash.
20,000.
It's down to
And,
75
If
now.
I may, isn't that where we usually, is that where we put the snow and ice?
No.
No.
Where do we put that?
We
Leave
budget
it
that
in-
and we
no,
deficit spend.
We leave it, yeah, you deficit spend, but you leave you leave it in free cash.
Oh, so we leave that in,
Because we would raise it in the springtime to cover whatever deficit
Okay,
exists at the time.
if I might.
Sure.
Where do, we don't, during the winter, when Peter comes to us and says he needs the money, we don't take it then out of
No,
free cash.
you,
So where do
that's
we?
the only line item you're allowed to deficit spend.
Right.
in the
We
budget.
spend money technically we don't have in the budget.
Right.
And then we fund it back
You
through free
offset it.
cash at town meeting. And if you raise that budget number, you need to
Yep, I
stay-
remember
yeah,
that part of it. I
yeah,
was
it's
just
in trouble.
trying to, I thought that some of that, for some reason, I guess I thought it was in reserve and we took it out, but that's where we deficit spend, okay?
Can I ask
Sure.
a question? What is do you know what the capital fund is at now and what the
Yeah,
staff fund?
about
is?
86,000, yeah.
So,
The capital fund is at 86,000 and the stabilization fund is at 1.1 million.
And you strive to have the stabilization fund at 5% of total expenses.
Right.
That's the benchmark number. For me, I'd like to see it higher than that.
What, 5
that's
you
the-
said?
Yeah, that's pretty much
On the
the
step?
number you should, yeah.
5% of the operating budget.
Operating budget.
And I think that part of the apprehension about putting too much in the stabilization fund is it takes a two-third vote at town meeting to get it out.
Correct.
What, you know, with good reason. That's the rainy day fund as far as I'm concerned. And, I'd like to take an aggressive stance, putting more there. So that, you know, we have a major emergency going forward, we have an avenue to fund things.
Do we need to fill in the numbers here, or can that be on the motion, on the floor?
Well, this is an up to figure and it can change
Oh, it's totally
with the motion.
flexible.
Yes.
But you have to have a number at the
Yeah,
motion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
For tonight, we don't need a number.
Right, so we can do just the up to,
We don't even need a number
nothing?
right
Okay.
now.
No, I'm saying up
Well,
to percent wise.
You'll need a number in there when the warrant is posted.
Right, on floor, motion made, no?
No, when it's posted 2
Okay,
weeks
2
before
weeks
the
prior.
meeting,
Okay.
So that gives us until when to make a decision?
October
Mid-October.
11th.
Okay.
So are you comfortable enough to know where those numbers are gonna run in, that we will be able to have a solid number?
Well, we'll know what free cash is certified at next week.
Okay.
So it's the will and pleasure of the board. Do we want to wait before we pick a number until the next meeting? We talked about this at the last meeting, and I asked people to be prepared to pick a number tonight, but it seems like we want to postpone it, although Gary's got his hand up, so go ahead, Gary.
I would like to somehow, us get together, be it the whole board, or we have a couple people subcommittee with finance. I'd like to see capital not coming out as we do it here, but at a separate line item that is funded out of the general budget every year. They did create that line item last year and funded it with, what was it? I thought it was 168, I guess it was 182 or something. And there was a lot of feeling. I mean, I think I attended every finance meeting this past spring. And there's a lot of folks there, I think, that feel the same way, but we just don't seem to get together as the two boards to talk about it. Maybe Mike can do it if we can't get together, but I really would like to see a change in policy on capital anyways, which would be a certain percentage to be every year. Not a certain number, but a certain percentage of our operating budget. And we've talked about it a lot in the past as a board, but we keep funding it this way, and
Well, I don't disagree with that. I think the 182 was a good first step. That was the first, to get over that hump.
we need to
say,
take another step.
Yeah, next step is next budget. Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree at all. It gets tight though when you start doing the budget and you're saying, if we say, whatever that number is, whatever that percentage of the total, revenue is, it starts to put strain on other budgets and, that's where the apprehension starts to come in. It
Granted.
seems to be the last number that you backfill.
But unfortunately, if I may, I mean,
Sure.
the number that they put in was something that came from something for school, and here's school here tonight looking
But that was
for
me.
more, because they've got no, yeah, but I mean, it's something that they've got
Distraction.
nowhere to draw from. If they'd have had that, maybe it would have given them a bigger cushion. That I
I
don't
don't know if they could mix
But-
capital with.
but
with
I-
the capital
That's
fund.
not a
Okay.
capital expense, though.
I
Well,
don't think they can mix it. I hear you, though. I agree with you. I'm on your
we-
side with that one, definitely. We
well,
should.
so that's what I'm saying. I mean, we could still have this policy that we have to add to that, but I mean, are we going to at some point take that step and start funding a certain amount in the spring out of the general budget? And we need to get together with finance to make that decision.
I agree.
Well, isn't that all part of our ad hoc capital committee?
No,
That's completely different.
no, they just look at the projects, they don't get,
They take what
No,
we
no,
give
no,
them.
for the capital, I'm sorry, the maintenance, I'm the wrong one, the maintenance committee. Is that all part of that discussion point that we need to have?
well, you're talking more of a whole, no, the maintenance is more of an operating.
That's operational, not a capital?
I think
Okay.
there has to be some coordination between CIP, us, and FinCom on that. And to get together and say, okay, these are the projects that we have in the pipeline. What can we afford in terms of a percentage of our total revenue? And what are we comfortable with plugging in there into the budget? And then filling in the rest of it rather than backfill at the end. So I agree with you. I'd love to investigate that. And I'm sure FinCom wants to get there too. First step was good. Let's get to the second step. I agree.
In the
100%.
meantime, we need to do it this way for this year.
For now, yeah, for this month, yeah, for this time, I think
For
we
this
should do it.
year, because,
Keep progress going.
and then try and get it to next spring's budget for the future year, right? To
I
get-
just,
Yeah,
but-
agreed. Look, Gary, you got the floor, Gary, so. go
well,
ahead.
I just like to keep plugging that. That's what I'm saying. I
Right.
think this is excellent. We can still put the additional free cash in when we get it.
Right.
Or up to the 25%, but if we, so I just keep plugging that. We need to get together, get that on our agenda, and get something done with it.
Okay, so, my original question was, are we in a position tonight to present some numbers here, or do we wanna wait till the next meeting?
I would prefer we do get an opportunity to converse with FinCom. I need to take a look at what that capital improvement plan looks like, because that will dictate to me what we need to start funding for, and how much is in that 5-year plan anyhow. The second part to that is just one thing I wanted to comment is that although we're not properly funding a capital fund that's coming out of our general budget, keep in mind that we're spending a ton of money from the CPC on capital improvements in this town. So it
agree.
sounds like we're not doing anything. We're spending a lot of money on capital improvements, which is, in the CPC, it's a great use of, I think, of that money. In most areas, I'm in agreement with most of what they're doing over there. Personal beliefs and some stuff that may or may not agree. However, that said, so when we talk about funding capital, I think we need to also add that into what we're budgeting for capital expenditures over the years coming up, as opposed to just looking at an $82,000 fund, because we're spending millions.
Agreed, but back to my original question, are we ready to?
I'm
agree?
not.
Okay, anybody else? We wanna hold this till the next meeting?
I would like to see, if I may, the figures just as you said, what are the other things that we need to fund out of it?
Well, this was a
And
big assumption.
get
Yeah,
something-
1.1
yeah,
million
and then
for
that helps.
total. Schools, 250, 85,000 out for the feasibility study, which we may get half of that back. Leaves us at 665, less 200 for snow and ice as a reserve. Leaves us $465,000 left in free cash. So my thought process was to take 25% of those two numbers, and that's what we would put in stab, and that's what we would put in the capital fund. But if we're not ready to do that tonight, then fine. We can always, change amend the number. Although if we pick a number tonight, Mike, is that cast in stone?
No.
No. Okay.
The one thing I would propose is, I'd like us not to see go backwards on the capital fund. So we were at 186 last year. Is that where we started? Is
That was a budgeted number, though. That's kind of different.
No, but I'm saying, I think we want to keep making progress and improving and not have it being a token amount and actually
Right.
keep it on the increasing as best we can and keep getting the number up.
But that, again, that's for a budget.
50?
was
Last
182.
year, we added 75 and 75 to both funds.
Right, from the assessors fund
Overhead.
rebates we got.
Yeah, the overlay
Plus, we put
account.
182 in it for the budget. So that's over 250,000. So again, so if we're not comfortable with a number, we wanna get more information and wait. I mean, my thought process was to do it tonight, but if you guys wanna wait, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, the only reason I say that is, I'm not sure, I mean, is FinCom even aware of the other asks that are on, all of the asks that are on the table right now?
Yes, they are.
And,
I don't know if were they ready, aware of the, sorry, to interrupt, but were they aware of the 250 number?
Last week, I indicated to them that it was about 125,
Right, so they may have backed off their 300, 100
Yeah.
number. Probably. I don't wanna speak for them, but I
They,
would
they
say.
would cut it 100,000 at least,
Right.
you know.
yeah, and I think it would be fair to make sure that they understand where we're coming from. I know they're just providing guidance to us, and we ultimately have the final decision, but
Right.
I wanna make sure that, given the guidance that we're in the potential expenditures that are out there,
Okay.
you know where I'm going.
All right, I know where you're at. All right, so
Yeah.
when is FinCom meeting next?
I don't think they're meeting until the 3rd. You have a meeting scheduled for the 1st.
And we have to be done by the 1st with this,
You should have that wrapped up, yeah.
with the number, so it's published.
Yeah, 'cause we have to get it reviewed by legal counsel and published by the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real tight schedule.
Well, so
Maybe-
we're not gonna be able to get guidance from Finance Committee between now and then, so
Unless
why
you
would?
had them come in to the
Yeah, we can come to our meeting.
next meeting,
October 1st,
yeah.
even if it's a couple of representatives and it's not a
That-
quorum?
Well, that's the only two things they voted on.
Okay. All right, so then we'll wait and we'll ask FinCom, at least a representative from FinCom to come in and speak with us on October 1st so we can make a better informed decision on the amounts. How's that?
Fair.
All right, so those are placeholders, so we don't have to vote on those at all, right?
All right.
Okay, so we're on to Elm Street article, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've heard from Peter. I think we have mixed opinions here about whether this should be on the warrant this time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-03, Elm Street rehabilitation of $1.8 million to the town warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion.
I have a procedural question, which really, I don't think it's come up before for me, is, in terms of the order of the articles on a warrant, how is that determined, and what's our procedure if we wanna change?
You set the warrant.
So we can set it, right? So my thinking is this, if the board moves this forward, I would suggest putting this ahead of, in front of, the Pembroke School project. And my thinking is if I'm a resident of that street, I'd like to know, potentially, I might like to know that we're gonna improve the street and not just the school. And secondly, if I'm gonna vote for the school, I wanna know the total budget that I'm gonna be looking at and not have it. So I would propose that we move it in front of the school, because I think it should come in front of the schools, because I think it makes a difference to how people might perceive the project.
I don't see any problem with that. I think it's fair, and I think it's probably wise.
I would say put it as right after the Pembroke School. So that they're both together, rather than
But
on
you
top.
missed what I was saying though, I wanna know,
Understand,
if
okay.
if
Yeah, I
they're
got
gonna
you.
build a giant project on my street, so if I'm living on that street and they're gonna build a very big project on my street, I wanna make sure they're gonna take care of my street.
Yep.
And not say, oh, we'll do it after, and then it doesn't pass us, and I voted for the school, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So, I think it's fair to know that we're gonna take care of that business beforehand, is what I'm proposing.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, and I don't know why I don't know this answer, but it may be a stupid question. If we vote on if we did that, and we voted in the affirmative for the road rehabilitation of $1.8 million, and for some reason the Pembroke School didn't pass, are we obligated to commit the $1.8 million and upgrade Elm Street
Until rescinded.
until rescinded? So someone on the floor, though, could rescind it, right?
There'd be a you might not be able to do it at that meeting.
Right, next
But the
meeting.
next meeting we could if we
Yeah.
had to. Okay, then that's not an issue.
And can we make it contingent upon another article?
Yes.
Which I would suggest, wherever you put it, we can make it harder for you, but, I mean, I think we've done that in the past where we make it contingent upon, you know, for example, I'm just jumping in for 1 second, the school, the middle high school feasibility study might not make sense if the Pembroke doesn't pass because the 6th grade would still be there and it's a completely different issue. So I'm just saying that we have some contingencies here. I just wanna make sure it makes sense to the
Yeah.
people, the residents, and it's very clear, everything's on the table, we can see a logical order to it, so that they, you know, have a full picture and aren't confused as to what we're doing.
So, that being said, if Elm Street doesn't pass, does that automatically take the school out of play, is that what you're saying? Or vice versa? So that's why I wanted it second, the school goes first, and then if that does not pass, then we pass over Elm Street. They're on the same paper, they're not on a different page.
I would say Elm Street would be first, contingent upon the passing of Article Pembroke.
Can you do it like that, out of order? I don't think you can.
Yes, you can,
Out of order?
as a matter of fact, the moderator can take up any article in any order she wants, based on the will of the meeting.
If someone wants to change it, but I'm just trying to lay it out so people can see, here's what it would look like.
Maybe we should put them all together,
What, the 85?
in the middle of high school, right after each other, 1, 2, 3.
I think it makes sense to group it together.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
I would
people
agree with
sit all
that.
Together, rather than split. Again, it was just based on when they came in,
No,
they
no, I
just
understand.
listed that way.
Well, because, just, not to complicate it, but I'm going to. If the MSBA states that we will only receive funding for Pembroke if we pass the feasibility study for the high school, right? There's some contingencies that go there, that we have to have the appropriate wording so people understand
Mhm.
the interconnection. You know, because we just, my big thing is we got a lot going on, and I don't want people to be confused. I wanted to try and make it more logical in the conversation I'm having right now, in terms of, you know, what is contingent upon what.
Bruce, you following any of this?
All right, we're losing control here. It's Gary had a thought,
Find a
so.
stairway and just float the stairway, see your land.
Gary, sorry.
Just like on the ballot,
Put them all three.
can Pembroke and the school be one warrant article?
I don't think MSBA will let us do that.
No, the specific, they give you the specific language.
Well, to that, if they're contingent, as you're saying, I mean, I don't think my feelings were like David, it wouldn't make much sense to put Pembroke ahead of the school to get approved and then see the school not get approved. But if you can put a contingency with them, it doesn't much matter, I don't
If the
think.
feasibility, if
We
the
have to
Pembroke
be
doesn't
careful.
pass, you can just pass over the feasibility study. So that does make sense. So Elm Street contingent upon Pembroke, if that passes, Pembroke pass or not pass, affects that. And then if Pembroke didn't pass, you'd skip over the feasibility study because there would be no reason for it. I mean, there is a logic
Right.
to doing that.
I wanna be
just don't
careful,
want-
but although, that's a good thought, but I wanna be careful that we don't jeopardize with the state any type of funding vehicle because we've said one's contingent on the other. Because they were a little shaky about, and a little skittish, at least our OPM is a little skittish about us including Elm Street with the school. So I just wanna make sure we're not making a procedural mistake here. Maybe keep them on their own merits, one, in order, not contingent on each, and let the moderator handle that issue. If the school doesn't pass, then she passes over. That's why I said put Elm Street right underneath the school. People are gonna know ahead of time.
That might be a valid point, though.
So that she goes Pembroke School. If it doesn't pass, she passes
Then
over
you
Elm
pass
Street.
over it,
She
and then you
passes over
pass over
feasibility. I would
contingent.
put them in that order.
Yeah.
School, Elm Street, feasibility.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If I'm an Elm Street
procedurally.
resident, I hate that.
Why?
Because you're asking me to vote on a $25 million school with no guarantee that my street's gonna get fixed. I wanna know my street's gonna get fixed before I vote on that school. That was my point before. is
And if
that
it doesn't pass, what are you gonna do then? Not vote for the school because your street's not gonna get fixed?
I might
Maybe.
not.
Well, it's
I
either
might
way.
not.
You can look at it both ways.
What's it take to rescind? It's town meeting. It comes up as this was passed last year and we're rescinding this now.
Yes.
So then if that's a concern with putting that first, the street first, then you can always go back in spring and rescind it,
Okay.
you know?
I don't wanna tie them into each other though. I want them separate. I would see them separate.
That's
One,
fine.
Just think of the town floor
three.
debate as well for a second, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna end up talking about the school if we're talking about Elm Street.
Yeah.
And it's gonna turn into a school conversation as opposed to a street conversation. I know that will happen. I think the intent is, the thought process is pretty good, but I can just see on town floor, it's, why are we talking about the school project when this is an Elm Street issue? And it's gonna be a debate about the school and the impact it has on Elm Street, as opposed to, all right, we just agreed to a school, and now
Now we
we've
have to
gotta talk
fix the
about
street.
the street that has to go with that in order for us to be successful with it. And I'm afraid tying in the feasibility study, the state hasn't told us just yet that if that doesn't pass, this whole Pembroke project is dead, right? They haven't said that.
No, and I don't think they can. They're just saying, from what I'm getting at the meetings, they're just saying, we want it on the ballot.
Right,
They
so I
can't-
wouldn't
they can't
tie
make
that
it
to anything.
Contingent
That's
upon
good.
passage.
Oh.
They just wanna, and Carol spoke to it tonight, they wanna see that we're showing a good faith effort to at least do something about it, that
Yeah.
they
But back to
can't
Steve's point.
control the
Back to
fact that, somebody voted to fund it or not.
But back to Steve's point, for the Pembroke School to be successful, we need to make the modifications at the high school to those classrooms. Make no mistake. There was modifications that would help with some of the design of Pembroke School. That's the way I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it.
No.
No, it's just gonna make us less likely to come back in 5 years and ask for money for a new high school.
Well, I don't know about that. That's not the way I read it, but maybe I've been out of it for a little while.
No,
Because they were
because
modifying
the sixth grade's
classrooms.
coming out of there into Pembroke.
Okay.
It's just to make the remaining students more,
Well, they had to
there
modify
was
the
office
building,
space
the
going.
rooms and all that. And
I'd have to go
it's-
back and look.
yeah,
Yeah.
it makes them, brings them more up to code
Yeah.
for educational purposes.
Okay, all right, well, then I stand corrected then, but I'm gonna ask that question tomorrow night. before the
Okay.
meeting. All right, so at this point,
Pembroke
What's-
Street and then the high school feasibility.
yeah, that's what I would
You
say.
guys okay with that?
No. But I mean, we can vote it. I
I don't think we have to vote it, I think it's just a matter of, we
Well,
haven't
no,
voted on all these articles, have we voted on all these articles yet, Mike?
No,
No, so we haven't even voted on them yet, so we can take them in order and label them any way we want.
Right.
So, so then, let's do this. Let's entertain a motion to approve Article STM 1301 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Didn't we do that early when we were discussing?
No, we just
it?
went over the cash effect, I don't think we voted on
I
it.
thought Phil did. I remember him reading off.
Did we do that one?
Did we do one already?
Did we do
No,
one?
I
think
Gary, I did the highway department
Yeah,
one.
he did the, yeah,
was,
he did the last one, which is
the
good.
last one.
The last one in order.
Because Peter was here.
Okay.
All right, so we have a
I thought
motion
discussed this
and a
one, that we did
second.
do it, but-
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so that's 1301 we just did. 1302 will be as presented. Right, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-02 for the town warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
Okay, the ayes have it. So 1302 is passed. 4 to
Mr.
1.
Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-08.
Second.
Well, back up.
That's the capital fund one.
Yeah, but
That's
wait.
just to put it on it.
Well, no, oh, that's 08, but you're going out of order. I was gonna look for 03. So I have a motion and a second, so I have to go forward. Discussion?
Which
Without a
one?
number now.
Right.
Okay, we just put number 8, okay.
Capital fund.
Our capital fund. We agreed that we're gonna put a placeholder there for some type of capital fund from free cash, no amount yet. We're gonna
Right.
decide to do that next meeting.
So are we closing, we're not closing the warrant?
No, we're just voting on these articles.
Yeah,
We
you
are closing
Yeah,
the
you
warrant, but we can put a number in there
Oh,
When you post.
when we
Right.
post.
You can always
Sorry.
open and close it again.
yeah, we can open and close it again, to put a number in there if we wanted to.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, like, if I may, Mr. Chair, why move on it till we know the number? But
We're just trying to get them in order, basically.
Okay.
We're trying to determine the order, so it doesn't really hurt to put them on tonight. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, 5-0.
All right, I'm gonna keep going here just to get these done, okay? Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-09, the stabilization fund for the town warrant.
We have a motion and a second. All those any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, slow down for 1 minute now. So we've got 8 and 9, and we stopped at 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
I have a procedural question.
sure.
Did we vote on the motion I made for 13-03?
No.
So I have a motion and we have a second out there. We've got to take that vote.
Okay,
That's the Elm Street rehab for $1.8 million.
okay. And that would fall right under 02. Mike, you're just gonna swap them, move them, right? That's perfect. It falls right underneath the school, just on this form, because it's 03.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just because it's on the paper here, you can just move it.
Yeah, we
This
can
vote.
move it.
All right.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, so we have a motion on this particular article, 1303. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yay.
Okay, 4 to 1. Okay, so I'm looking for 04, okay.
All right, now we're gonna do 04. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-04, Middle High School feasibility study for $85,000.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
4 to 1. Okay, so that's 04. Okay, so we got, right now we have what, 5, 6, 7 open. All right, 5, 6,
7 is closed now.
Closed.
7 is closed, and then 8 is already been done. All right, so that'll all work. All right, good. So, go ahead, Phil. 05.
What is this?
Basically what this is we've had, authorization to borrow for prior projects that we didn't use that particular borrowing. It's time to retire.
Send it, okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Articles STM 13-05 to the town warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Do we have, we received, I remember Mike telling us about it, did we receive papers on this? I mean, how are we gonna explain this on town meeting floor? Who's
Well-
gonna do it?
It's recommended by we had a comment by our financial auditors
Yeah,
in the last audit to rescind that. It's taking up valuable authorization. We have a limit to what the town can borrow, and if we don't rescind this, it cuts into that, the limit.
So it's a line, it's available to borrow. We're done with the project. There's no need to borrow it anymore. It's time to just wipe it off. The authorization to borrow.
what's the project?
Prior stuff.
No, the 400,000 was a Board of Health project. They were going to apply for a grant to help fund septic systems.
Yes.
And they did one grant for about 200,000, and that's still active. It's not an official revolving fund, but that's the way the grant is set up. They loan the money out, and as it gets repaid, they can loan it out again.
Some of that on,
No,
Okay.
it's not on that. They did, in '02, they were gonna do a similar type program. They got the approval at town meeting, but they never got the loan. I mean, they didn't get the grant. And I talked to Deb Rogers, and she said they have no intentions of, they didn't get the grant, and they'll never use that money. So it's okay to rescind it. And then the $700 was from a $95,700 warrant article several years ago to buy books for the school. They spent $95,000. They haven't spent the $700, so they borrowed the $95,000. They didn't borrow, so we have to get the $700 off the books.
so that's it, and you're gonna be prepared to speak to that, I guess, if the question gets asked.
Yeah, that's a real easy one.
Yeah, okay.
That's pretty easy.
FinCom too.
Okay, so, do we have a motion? In a
Yep.
second, there was discussion, right?
That was it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Okay, Article 6.
Chair, I move that we approve Article STM 13-06, special education funding to the town warrant.
Did you vote for her?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Now, in this case, Mike, can we say not to exceed? Or that, in other words, because their motion was to be determined, discussed with the committee, where we're putting a dollar figure in there.
Legal counsel doesn't like that term, so I think we
What?
should. So right now, you just say to raise and appropriate.
Up to.
Funds
Or just funds?
for this, for special education funding, and then in the motion, you mention the,
Right.
you know,
All right, Phil,
The amount.
did you mention the motion?
No,
Did you mention
the only reason why I would, is, I wanna get this warrant right once, and is there anything above and beyond by just saying that, for funding, that we need to worry about? We can always change it, right, but,
the wording's gonna get developed by legal
Legal
counsel.
counsel.
so just keep it as is and
Yeah.
we'll change it.
All right, so, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Yay, I'd like to say, it's just because I'd like to see the wording, I mean,
Well, we know what the spirit is of it, so, okay. And we already voted on 7. So Mike, what you're gonna do is put them in order by the STM
Wait,
number.
there's
On
one
the-
other that was omitted. on this
$100,000,
draft,
right?
FEMA match for $100,000.
We'll call that 13 what?
10.
Oh, 1310? We up to 9, yeah, okay. Was there a 9?
Yeah, there was a 9. 9 was on the.
Yeah, 9, okay, yep. Okay, so STM 1310 is gonna be a $100,000 match for the FEMA grant, right?
Yes.
Or what's this, one of the culverts?
This is school,
School mitigation.
Oh, this is the water mitigation?
Water mitigation.
Okay.
so 100 to get upwards
middle
to
school?
4.
Middle school and
Middle
high
school.
school.
And
And Pearly.
Early school, yeah. The gym floor, the
50,000 for each
Yeah.
potential grant.
Okay, so who wants to take a shot at that one?
It's just coming out of FEMA?
No, this
I
is
forget.
coming out of free cash.
Oh, there's another
There's not-
100,000 out of free cash we didn't, by the way, Mike.
I
So puts us down at 365.
thought I had that figured in
Yeah.
there.
Okay,
Glad we didn't plug a number in yet.
we don't need to figure out where that source is coming from.
I wrote that one.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
I move that we approve Article 13-10, article to fund $100,000 for the school water mitigation project at middle high school and Pearly School.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
just again, without seeing language, I feel like we're making things up, so.
Well, we know we have to put up
I
$100,000 to get
understand.
400,
I
so we've known
understand.
it for a while. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, a question, would it make sense to put all the school stuff together and group stuff in a logical order? We have the special education funding, and then we have the FEMA grant, piece. Just
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think the school issue, the school, Elm Street, and the feasibility is one issue. The other issues are, you know, stuff that has come
They're
up that,
different, absolutely,
they're
yeah.
totally different, so I would leave them as,
Well, the mitigation one though for FEMA does tie into the improvements for the high school.
But it has to be done whether or not.
whether or not we,
actually
yeah.
have
It's gotta happen.
Yeah, either way, yeah,
Well,
so.
most people don't vote for it.
Well, I think we've got a pretty good,
Yeah, I'm with you, I'm just saying,
one
it's
of
part
those-
of the, it's
if
part of
it-
the.
If it didn't pass, we could address it again in a future year.
Right.
It's not a feasibility study.
all right, so, we have to actually close the warrant now, Mike?
Yes, you should.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to close the town meeting warrant dated October 29th, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Hey,
Okay.
just gonna open it up again later.
All right, well, it's closed for now. All right, let's go back through, there was a question from the audience.
I have two questions.
Sure.
First question is, when will the final text of these, the town warrant be available for public inspection?
2 weeks prior.
2 weeks before the, when will the actual final warrant be issued for public posted?
It has to be posted 2 weeks before the vote, before the meeting.
15?
15th, our target date is the 11th to post.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question is, has to do, my understanding is that the school building committee is preparing a document which is setting forth the rationale for the school project.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, once this document is finished, will it be promulgated in a general fashion throughout the community so that everyone has the opportunity to read it and fully understand all of the salient facts about the project, including the cost and everything else, and the tax rate, the whole deal? Is that an accurate
I think,
information?
I'll know more, we'll know more tomorrow night. My suggestion would be to cut, if you can attend the meeting tomorrow night, but that would be the intent, yes. I'm not so sure what actual content's gonna be on that particular document. I'm not so sure that they would quote the tax rate change. I don't know. I wasn't at the last meeting.
They will.
They will, okay. So yes, the intent is to do that. And also, there also was a request, I did get an email request from a citizen asking if we, meaning the Board of Selectmen, would also have a public hearing so that people could come up, you know, a question and answer period. I think we may do a joint meeting, and again, I'm gonna talk to them tomorrow night. I'm part of that committee. So we would probably do a joint committee, if there are any planned additional public hearings to go over that cost in that particular document. You're welcome, sir.
The building committee's already established 2 meetings.
Oh, okay, so I had a death in the family, so I wasn't at the last meeting, so,
I think on, I forget the dates, the 9th and the 16th possibly,
okay,
and they were considering the 3rd.
okay. All right, everybody's packing up here, I can feel you, but we have other things to do here, gentlemen. Mike, you wanna give us an update on, where we are with our triple E, alert and status?
Well, the Board of Health met last week. At the same time, the Town Board of Health met. At the same time, the State Board of Health issued an advisory indicating that there was a human case of triple E in town. We haven't gotten any further updates on the condition of the person, so nothing is really known. However, I think you've all read in the paper, I think yesterday, a woman in Amesbury died of triple E. So that's the first confirmed death from triple E in the state.
Second, Sudbury was struck,
Stand corrected.
but who's counting at this point?
But the board met last week, based on the information they received from the state, and have restricted all public usage of town property, from 3 p.m. to 9 a.m. So everybody off the field at 3 and nobody back on until 9 in the morning. The Board of Health, our inspector and our agent have been fielding tons of calls, as you might imagine. And they run the gambit from thank you for all your hard work to what are you trying to do to us? You know, Johnny can't play now. But I think Debbie told me she received 8 calls of a negative nature last week, and 8 out of 8,000 isn't, that's a pretty good batting average. We did take it, the Board of Health actually offered, and it was accepted, that the golf course was sprayed. The trucks went out there and followed the cart path, sprayed the entire golf course, and.
I was actually there to witness that, by the way.
Were you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of wet land over there for breeding mosquitoes, so, and they were taking requests from, you know, private citizens, if they weren't, you know, on a regular route, they would do driveways and whatnot. So the whole town was thoroughly sprayed. And as I said, when this warning first came out, the best, you know, follow precautions, wear long sleeves and use DEET, and try to stay out. Don't go out of doors in that 3 to 9 period without protection, and hope that we get a killing frost real soon.
Okay, well, the word
That's
is,
the only way the danger will subside, is a killing frost.
well, the word is to be diligent and continue to follow the protocols. Any questions, certainly call the health agent. Mr. Dawes, you had a question?
I just have a quick, because I didn't hear. Has the town been sprayed or just
Yes.
certain areas?
No, the whole
The
town.
whole town has been,
The
okay.
whole town.
Okay, Mike, ESCO update, how we doing?
Still moving forward. They're here in the building doing lighting. Started in the basement and are working the way up. The boiler for the building is, I think they'll be taking out the old boiler very shortly, if not this week, next week. They have to get it back in by the 15th. That's, we're cutting it a little close there, but they probably won't have the controls in by the 15th, but they'll have it set to manually operate and heat.
Good.
But everything else is, the school projects are moving right along.
Great. Okay, the two other small items of business, I was remiss in not thanking Paul Nelson for his time and commitment to serving on the Conservation Commission, so thank you, Paul, on that. One last issue I want to bring up, and I want to make it a public apology on behalf of this board, and me personally, as the chairman of the board. On September 11th, the flags were not at half-staff, and there's no excuse for that. I did make a personal visit to the fire department on the morning of September 11th, and the flag was out on the fire truck. And I too rode by Harvey Merch Park and didn't realize that the flag was not at half-staff, and the flag in front of Town Hall was not at half-staff. And so, but rest assured that we're going to make sure that somebody is responsible for taking care of the flags at any point in time where the governor or the Commonwealth asks that that be done mandatory. It was not done purposely to, in any disrespectful manner at all. It was just an issue where somebody else thought somebody else was doing it, and it didn't get done. So I take full responsibility for that as chairman of the Board of Selectmen and offer an apology to the town. That being said, our next meeting is October 1st, and we're gonna ask a representative FinCom to be in on October 1st to talk about the free cash transfers. Any other new business to be brought before the Board of Selectmen tonight? Yes, Mr. Fowler?
Just you cleared one up. I had a couple of things here, and you mentioned about perhaps having a joint meeting, which I'm glad to hear about. That's been talked about when I've attended some of their meetings. But Stu earlier mentioned, and this has been on my mind, something about a maintenance committee. Now, we've got an appointed maintenance committee?
Yes, there
and-
is a maintenance committee. Stu is our representative. I don't know how many meetings they have. Stu, you want to elaborate a little bit? Have you had any meetings yet?
We had one this summer, we have one on October 2nd.
To talk about combined maintenance for the hotel.
Right.
Yeah, so perhaps at a future meeting, we could have an update on where we are in that with that, or
Sure.
at least.
Well, that's why
Have you-
Stu's
have
there
you got-
representing us, so,
Have you
yeah.
got stuff out there on agendas and that? I haven't
Yeah,
looked,
it's
but okay,
posted.
okay.
It just got posted today, Gary.
Oh, okay.
Good.
I'll try and find my way there.
Yeah. Anything else?
Come join us.
Thank you.
Okay. That being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you, everybody,
Good night.
Aye.
and good night.